This is Atomic Shinobi, and today I'm going to narrate what if Naruto's Jinchuriki status was unknown. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Now, wasting no more time, let's start the story.
Incredulously, Yamato Akira asked his liege, "You want me to do what, Hokage?" Sama. He doubted that he had heard correctly. Instead of letting out a sigh, the blond man in front of him nearly clicked his tongue. He felt a headache coming on, so he rolled his sky blue eyes and tried to rub it away. When the Yondaime said, "I think you heard me, Akira," the battle was to be fought the night before. It would soon reach the hidden village of the Leaf, which the Kyuubi was advancing on. Every single ninja, from Genin to Junin, instructors to Anbu, was ready to sacrifice themselves to defend their village during this pivotal moment of combat. However, the Yondaime's recent statement, it was totally contrary to Akira's principles. Even though a Hokage, the head of their village, would never say such a thing, he did. Sir, you're asking me to stay back while all my comrades and friends go out and risk their lives. Akira replied. I can't just do that, they're depending on me to be there. How can I face them if I remain safe and armed behind our lines while they die fighting? He said, listen to me, Akira, Yondaime. You're the only one I can entrust with this task, and it requires you to be alive. The bundle of blankets that the youngest Hokage ever held caught Akira's attention. It writhed slightly, and a baby's face, clearly asleep, came out. His blonde hair stood out in tufts, indicating that he had one of the greatest ancestries ever. As he watched the infant roll around in his sleep, Akira couldn't help but feel at ease. Akira questioned, but, my lord, why me? There's plenty more people that you can entrust this task to. I'm neither your best soldier nor the best man to raise a child. I'm nothing special. How about Saotome Haruka? She's pretty good with children and she would really like a kid to look after, or maybe your apprentice, Kakashi-san. He can keep him safe. Yondaime let out a sigh. The Yondaime remarked, you might think that's true, Akira. But it's not. No, I'm asking you to leave Konoha tomorrow night. He pointed to the blankets. He can't be surrounded by this village as he's growing up. Do you know what they'd do to somebody like him? A poor child, chosen from many to be the container of a demon whose power can't be measured in shinobi terms. There are those who would see him as a monster, and others that would see him as a potential weapon. Anybody that knows about his power and his status wouldn't even get close to him. Know what he needs is a peaceful existence, like any other child. The Yondaime let out another sigh. When the blonde Hokage said, I can't give him that, I'm afraid. Either way, I'll be dead tomorrow night. I haven't even told Sarutobi about my plan yet. What I want is for nobody to know that the Kyuubi isn't dead. When I fall, right after the ceiling, I want you to fake your death and take him somewhere to grow up. He pulled several scrolls from his robes and gave them to Akira, who gazed at them in perplexity. Sir. What? These are scrolls containing my family techniques. When he reaches the age of 7, I want you to start giving them to him on his birthdays. There are 5 scrolls in total, which will last until he's 12, of enough age to take the academy exam. The Yondaime replied. These scrolls will make sure that our family's bloodline and fighting style will never be lost. Now, here's what you should do tomorrow night when I fall. Reluctantly, but realizing the sacrifice the young man in front of him, 4 years his junior, was making for his village, Akira listened to him. The blonde ninja continued by outlining his expectations for his son and all the lessons he wanted Akira to impart. The scrolls were supposed to have come from a family friend, and his heritage could wait until he became Chunin. When the explanation was over, Akira's mind was racing. The Yondaime said, and that should be about it. Any questions? No, sir. But, maybe I should be writing this down. I might forget it later. After searching his robes for a few seconds, the blonde Hokage pulled out a sky blue scroll and said, no need for that, I've already written it down in a scroll. Here it is. It was sealed with a wax seal shaped like an Uzumaki spiral. And once again, thank you. I know this must be asking quite a lot out of you, but please consider this a dying man's request. Akira felt moved. The brown-haired Chunin said, no worries, sir. I swear on my mother's grave that I'll raise him up to be a shinobi worthy of your name. The Uzumaki name will live on, especially inside him. After pausing for a moment, the Yondaime grinned broadly. Nothing less than I expected from you, Akira, thanks. But something had gone wrong the night before the battle. The ninjas assigned to defense were dispersed by the Kyuubi's premature attack. An hour after the first attack was reported, many shinobi sacrificed their lives in battle to keep the demon from coming near Konoha, making the ultimate sacrifice so that their glorious leader, the Yondaime, could ride into battle. He and Yamato Akira were the only ones who knew the precise reason for his delay. The Kyuubi fell to the ground in a matter of minutes, disintegrating into dust. The shinobi pondered what had happened as its form disintegrated. Akira dashed through the forest to the scene of the recent battle between the Yondaime and Kyuubi. Every few seconds, he looked back to see if anyone was following him as he ran and bounced off trees. Sensing whether someone was following him was probably one of his few specialties. Before long, he reached the clearing where the Yondaime had sacrificed himself and the Kyuubi had fallen. A number of large footprints were found. Evidence of Kyuubi's destruction and the arrival of Gamabunta. The surrounding trees had been ripped to shreds. And a prone figure, face down, clutching a bundle of blankets in his hand, was in the middle of it all. Refusing to cry, Akira sank down next to his best friend. Although the Yondaime was undoubtedly a genius in his own right, he had received little recognition during his early years. Indeed, he had been considered by many to be a troublemaker and a useless. When he had skipped 3 years of the ninja academy, Akira had been his first friend. However, there wasn't time for this. He had to honor his friend's final desires. He picked up the baby, knowing it was sleeping inside the blankets, and carefully moved the dead hero's arms away from it. Akira realized the child had been awake the whole time. Akira could tell that even the boy had sensed his father's death because he was looking at him with a sad expression and dried tears streaming down his cheeks. He had a spiral seal on his belly, a creation of the Yondaime themselves. He swore softly as he heard voices in the woods. They would be here soon, and they appeared to be numerous. He would be forced to tell the truth, which would go against the wishes of a deceased man, if they discovered him and the infant. They would then demand to know why he was here. He couldn't just go ahead and do that. He began to flip seals with his hand. Akira emerged from the earth a few kilometers from the Yondaime's lifeless body. He sat down on the ground to catch his breath after silently thanking his Junin sensei for teaching him that move. He was aware that no one could possibly follow him at this point. Anybody who discovered the Yondaime would be too distraught to notice that a jutsu cast had been placed nearby that had nothing to do with the conflict between the Kyuubi and the Yondaime, and he had already left a body double in the battlefield. When he heard a baby's cries, he looked up from the covers to see a baby's face. Its whole face conveyed a sense of drowsiness, and its eyes were red and puffy from crying. Most likely a result of the seal. Akira panicked as the infant silently extended his arms from his blankets. What did the infant want to accomplish? When the baby's awkward little hands closed around the necklace the fourth had given him on his most recent birthday, his fears were unjustified. There was a cross on the end of a silver chain. Easy yet fashionable. It was believed that the chain had protection jutsus that would shield the wearer from misfortune. Abruptly, his mind returned to the Yondaime. The grief that suddenly overcame him was beyond description. He had been giving him instructions on what to do after he died a few hours prior, but nothing could protect him from this. The tears started after his eyes pricked. He gave the infant a tight hug. His son, the Yondaime, left behind this legacy. The wife had died a few days ago in childbirth, but he had no idea who she was. The fourth and his wife appeared to have had a covert relationship, including a covert marriage. In any case, it no longer really mattered. Then he opened his eyes in shock as his little charge's chubby baby hands encircled his neck. The infant, the son of the Yondaimes, was in tears alongside him. Although it didn't reach Akira at the time, it was an indication of his intelligence that he would comprehend what was happening at the age of only 5 days. He also threw his arms around the small bundle of blankets and started crying. The baby finally fell asleep as they stood there for hours, Akira reflecting on the good times he had spent with the ramen. Crazy Zero. Gone. Hero. The baby was soon lost in his dreams, and Akira used one hand to open the sky. Blue scroll the Yondaime had given him. Naruto will be the boy's name, and when his friend came up with a joke, Akira grinned through his tears. Akira found himself in front of a modest house in Waves Country a few weeks later. He had inherited a substantial sum of money from the Yondaime, which would allow him to live almost anywhere he pleased and support himself and his charge for many years without having to work. In fact, he wasn't sure if he should. He was unable to leave a baby unattended in a home. Not one as significant as this one, in particular. Perhaps after Naruto grew older, but not at this time. He dropped the bag of supplies he had purchased from a roadside vendor as he entered the doorway. It was filled with food scraps and rations, but they were more suited to a ninja on a mission than real food. In addition to some appropriate food, he would need to purchase some furniture and add some life to the space. He grinned as he saw those blue eyes look into his own as he looked down into the bundle of blankets that had taken up space in his arms. Now there was no point in crying for the fourth. He would be happy that his best friend thought he was deserving of carrying on his legacy, and he would make sure to honor him. Welcome to your new life, Uzumaki Naruto. The following few years flew by. Akira began teaching Naruto shinobi techniques when he was 5 years old. When the boy first witnessed his adopted father performing a simple Kaiden Jutsu move, he became immediately enthralled. Akira simply smiled and told Naruto that it came with training when he asked how he could do that in a childish, odd voice. A week later, he discovered the boy trying to beat a training dummy senseless in their backyard, unconscious. Although he wasn't exactly strict, he had never been forgiving of the boy. He always gave the boy encouragement when he slackened off, which was very infrequent. Naruto soon possessed the physical strength of a genin at the age of 6. Even Akira had been astounded, but he attributed it to his father's genes. He later purchased weights for Naruto, telling him to step it up each week because he thought he had sufficiently trained his body and taijutsu. Akira had started teaching his adopted son deception and stealth techniques when he was 6 years old. Perhaps because of his youth, he had learned from the Yondaime, who was the greatest of the best at tricks and deceptions. He held the saying, "A genius is a master of revealing. An idiot is a master of faking," near and dear to his heart. The statement was self-evident, and he had already ingrained it in his son's mind from their first lesson together. Naruto took the words to heart from that point on and started wearing bright colors nearly all the time, though orange was his favorite. Even Akira, a chunin level shinobi, was beginning to have problems locating him when they played hide and seek in the woods behind their home within a year of his 6th birthday. Although he was aware that continuous practice was the only way to improve with weapons, which is exactly what Naruto did, he had also begun working with Naruto on his aim with ninja weapons during this year. His specialty became moving bullseyes. And when he was 7 years old, he handed the young ninja be the first of the scrolls that the Yondaime had given him. Every day, Naruto studied it carefully in an effort to understand the writing style. He had frequently questioned Akira about the origins of the scrolls, but the chunin never gave a direct response, consistently claiming that a family friend was the source. Given how isolated their lives were, Naruto was aware that he was lying. Naruto spent most of his time training, while Akira spent most of his time instructing the boy. Akira had also begun teaching Naruto the fundamentals of ninjutsu and chakra during that year. Although Naruto struggled with manipulation, he had adapted to it like a fish to water. As Akira had discovered, his stamina was almost infinite, so it didn't really matter that he was always pulling on too much. He quickly learned a few Kaiden jutsus, one Suiden jutsu, and one don't jutsu for his elementals just before his 8th birthday. His adoptive father had also taught him henge, bunshin, and kage bunshin. Recalling that he had learned it directly from the Yondaime, Akira smiled. He had been practically beaten into it by the blonde Hokage. Even though the fourth had never given up on him, Akira was aware that he had always been a mediocre ninja. He summoned the chunin to his tower every other day, handed over all of his documents to the secretaries, and beat his first friend with jutsu and training techniques. He had the good fortune to learn the kage bunshin technique in this manner. He presented Naruto with the second scroll on his 8th birthday. He had initially panicked after witnessing the boy vanish for a few days. Akira gave Naruto a talking to after he returned from his week-long training trip. Akira had screamed at Naruto for several hours when he questioned why he cared when he wasn't even his biological father. After everything was said and done, Akira and Naruto both started crying and felt more connected than they actually were. Following the tearful outburst, Naruto neglected to demonstrate the new moves he had learned from the scrolls, and Akira had neglected to inquire as to why he had vanished in the first place. Needless to say, when Naruto executed one of his father's attacks seemingly out of thin air the next time they sparred, Akira was taken aback. Akira began teaching the fox boy about genjutsu's abilities after the scare. He soon began studying the theories and learning the seals by heart, even though the fourth's legacy had initially grumbled. Akira had already predicted that Naruto would struggle based on Yondaime's attitude toward genjutsu, but the blonde's obstinate nature had taken him by surprise. Even so, Naruto's mastery of a few basic genjutsu in just 6 months was a tremendous achievement. He frequently used his favorite technique, the Kanashibari, on Akira, who had become immune to it following a particularly negative genin experience in which he had been captured by enemy nins. On Naruto's 9th birthday, Akira bought him a ton of jutsu scrolls, including those for ninjutsu and genjutsu but not taijutsu, and declared that he didn't need any more instruction from someone who couldn't offer him sound guidance. He simply replied that he would soon understand why when Naruto questioned him about it, and he did. The Uzumaki clan's own form of taijutsu, simply referred to as Hakioka-seiken, was the subject of Yandaime's scroll that year, it turned out. And Naruto's ancestry was described in this scroll. Naruto was able to locate his dream after Akira gave him an explanation of the Kyuubi and his father's actions. The following day, Naruto's battle cry roused a sleepy Akira. "I will become Hokage." With a smile, Akira returned to her slumber, dreaming sweet dreams. Akira went to apply for a job shortly after deciding Naruto was old enough. He was able to secure employment as a blacksmith. It quickly evolved from a way to earn money to a pastime and finally a passion. Akira discovered that he had a passion for weapons and made the decision to learn smithing techniques, which would undoubtedly come in handy later. This continued year after year until the time came to go back to Konoha. Naruto stared in wonder and exclaimed, "Wow! So this is Konoha." When Akira noticed Naruto's eyes enlarge, he simply smiled. He had a little stubble around his perpetually unshaven chin and was dressed in a black shirt, baggy dark brown pants, and civilian sandals that were covered by a traveler's poncho. Despite being 33, he appeared to be no more than 25. His young charge was dressed in knee-length orange shorts and a thin orange vest that had been unzipped. He had on a black shirt underneath the vest. He had on black ninja sandals and black fingerless gloves with a thin strip of steel covering the back of the hand. "Yeah, the village of your birth, you scared?" Naruto remarked. "Come on, Tucson. You know me better than that." Akira smiled. "Yeah, I do." After glancing around for a few more seconds, Naruto turned to face his adoptive father. "So, Tucson, where do we go now?" "Well, first things first. We've got to make you a leaf.nin, right?" Akira replied. "And to do that, we'd better meet with the Hokage then." Naruto rolled that around in his mind. "The Hokage, huh? So, who is it?" "Dunno, since your dad passed." "Well, it's got to be Sarutobi Sensei unless he's bit the dust. But then again, he's a tough old coot, he's still got years left in him yet, the last time I saw him." Akira thought about it. "Yeah, probably Sarutobi." "Well, follow me then, and remember our cover story." Naruto gave a nod. They flew to the rooftops and made their way directly to the tower. Naruto questioned, "Why do we need a cover story anyway? Wouldn't it be better to just tell the truth that I'm the Yandaime's son?" "Well, that's quite a story there. Saying anything like that would lead to them finding out about your tenant, you know." Akira clarified. "I grew up in this village, and I know all about it. The guys here have memories like you wouldn't believe. Tons of them still haven't recovered from the Kyuubi's attack, you know. They'll probably start blaming you about it, and I can tell you that you don't want to be on the brunt of their attacks. They could make your life here miserable." "Oh, that sucks." Akira laughed. "Well, aren't you thankful that your dad told me to grab you and get you to another country?" "Yeah. Life would suck without you, Tucson. The Hokage will see you now." Naruto and Akira got up and walked past the secretary's desk before going into the Hokage's quarters. The Hokage's desk caught their attention first, then the back of a chair. The Sandaime was seated in front of them when the chair turned around. He had a smile on his face and a pipe in his mouth. "Please sit down." The chairs in front of them were sunk into by the father and son. The Sandaime gestured to the tray in front of them and said, "Would you like some tea?" Akira took a cup and said, "Thank you, Hokage Sama." Naruto gave a headshake. For a few seconds, they sat in pleasant silence while Akira and the Sandaime sipped their tea. Bored, Naruto simply glanced around the office. He quickly removed several paperclips from the Hokage's desk and began tinkering with them. The Sandaime, with a constant smile, said, "Well then, what are strangers like you here for to see an old man like me?" Akira grinned, but it was a forced smile. Not being able to identify it as Akira himself while standing here in front of his sensei, it was more difficult than he had anticipated. Akira said, "My son and I are traveling shinobi, Hokage Sama. Well, we've come today to request that we join Konoha." Sarutobi looked at them with a welcoming but critical gaze. "Well, I would always welcome new shinobi who want to join us, but there are safety regulations, you know. First, we have to make sure that you are who you say you are," said the Sandaime. "Can you please produce some identification?" Akira calmly took 2 papers out of his pocket and handed them to the Hokage while Naruto gazed at his Tucson. Sarutobi rummaged through it for a moment or two, then tidied it up and placed it in a pile next to the pile of papers on his desk. The Sandaime remarked, "That seems to be in order. You are Yeba Todo then, and your son, Yeba Naruto?" Naruto remarked, "That's right, Hokage Sama." Sarutobi looked at them both for a moment or two. The Sandame remarked, "Funny, you look nothing like him, if I may. Adoption, I presume?" "Ah, yes, Hokage. Sama," Akira exclaimed with joy. The Sandame glanced down at Naruto and said, "All right then, it says you're 12 here, aren't you? Well, we need proof that you can work as a shinobi and a leaf.nin. Would you mind attending the Ninja Academy for a day today? They're holding the graduation exam, and it would help me to find out where you stand according to other genin." Naruto laughed and remarked, "That's what I'm here for, Hokage. Sama." Sandame grinned. "All right then, that's good. I'll send somebody to help you find the place." Iruka called to the class, "All right, everyone, calm down, calm down." Mizuki leaned against the wall and stood next to him. At this time of day, when the children were arriving, the assistant could not be disturbed. Only Iruka had the authority and method of a teacher to quiet them down because they were constantly so noisy. After taking their seats, the students began chatting among themselves. As Iruka repeatedly urged Ino and Sakura to stop vying for the seat next to Sasuke, Mizuki looked on in amusement. As Iruka looked at him wearily, Mizuki laughed cheerfully and remarked, "Seems pretty calm today. I mean, it usually takes some more yelling before they settle down." In response, Iruka said, "That's true, it's probably just the idea of graduation." Mizuki looked at the throng before him and smiled. "Well, aren't you glad that you won't have to teach them anymore?" With my luck, half of them will fail the genin exam." Iruka moaned and Mizuki laughed. The classroom door abruptly opened, revealing a young blonde wearing orange, and a chunin who appeared uneasy. Standing next to each other. Without saying anything, the chunin moved forward, handed Iruka a piece of paper, then went to the doorway and departed. The blonde boy approached and took a position next to the instructor's desk. Naruto thought to himself, "Oh man, this is the first day of class thing that dad keeps telling me about, isn't it? Well, hopefully I'll be able to make a good first impression. I just got here after all, and I don't really want anybody to hate me." Naruto smiled anxiously up at the new kid while Iruka gave him an interested look. The chunin let out a sigh of relief. He would only have to put up with him for 2 days when classes weren't in session, so this one didn't seem like much trouble. He could live with that. With half the class's attention on the new student, it wasn't too difficult for him to call attention to the room. "All right, everybody, this is Yeba Naruto. He'll be joining us for the graduation exam. Naruto, find a seat. Any seat is fine." Just that's what Naruto did. He climbed the ledges, past the altercation between Sakura and Ino, and sat down directly next to Sasuke, who looked at him and attempted to assess his strength. Sasuke turned away as he smiled and saluted the black-haired boy with both fingers. The rest of the boys in the class laughed while the girls gazed at the newcomer with dreamy eyes, while Sakura and Ino gaped at what he had just done. Naruto persisted in attempting to speak with Sasuke while Iruka continued. Sakura had reluctantly sat next to Naruto, despite the fact that she thought he was rather adorable. "And that's how the test will go. Please come in when your name is called." One by one, the students entered the side room. Some emerged with joyful laughter, some with enthusiastic dancing, some with blank expressions, and some with tears in their eyes. As Kiba and Akamaru yahooed as they were thrown out by Iruka, Naruto smiled, and Mizuki's happy laugh played in the background the entire time. Yeba, Naruto. Naruto entered the side room after descending the ledges. As they walked down the dim hallway, a smiling Mizuki held it out to him and described the test. Naruto engaged the assistant teacher in conversation after finding him to be quite amiable. They discussed the circumstances in which kunai were superior to shurikens and vice versa. They entered a spacious room at the end of the hallway. It appeared to be some sort of obstacle course. There was Iruka, beckoning him to join him. Mizuki, who was grinning, pushed Naruto forward as he glanced at him. Taking the cue, Naruto hurried down to join his makeshift sensei. Iruka pointed to the obstacle course while glancing at him over the clipboard he was holding. The fox boy had already entered the course when he finished saying, "All right then. Try to make your way through that. No ninjutsu, but everything else is fine." He glanced at the boy to make sure he understood. As the boy flipped through the spike traps that opened up underneath in the storms of shuriken, Iruka watched in awe. He was enthralled as he saw Naruto arrive at the exit without even breathing. Grinning, the orange-clad shinobi .to.be left the obstacle course. He smiled and said, "Hey, sensei, how did I do?" After examining the stopwatch, Iruka wrote it down on his clipboard. Iruka exclaimed, 33 seconds. Wow. Alright then, you passed the obstacle course. The next step is aim with a ninja weapon. He moved to where a number of targets were standing in another area of the room. He gestured in their direction, and Naruto understood. The blonde fox boy swung a number of kunai in the direction of the target after flipping them out. Every strike was a target. He then pulled out a number of shuriken and hurled them in the direction of another target. It was torn through the middle in a flash. Iruka was once again taken aback as she watched the entire event. "Very well done, Naruto-kun," exclaimed Iruka with cheers. "Alright, next there's." As Iruka led him to another area of the room, Naruto smiled broadly. After spending so much time alone in their home back in Wave Country, there was a certain pleasure in being surrounded by people. As Mizuki Sensei called Sasuke's name, Naruto returned to his seat, and the two of them passed one another en route to their separate locations. The orange-clad fox boy felt a hand on his shoulder as the dark-haired Avenger walked by. He looked incredulously at Naruto as he turned his head. By now, the majority of the class was watching this. Naruto cheerfully exclaimed, "Hey, good luck," and removed his hand from the final Uchiha's shoulder. Sasuke gazed at his back as he made his way back to his seat. He had never been approached for the sole purpose of receiving such a casual comment. After shaking his head, the boy with the dark hair went down the stairs. He couldn't help but think of the surge of power he experienced when the boy had taken a seat next to him as he descended. Perhaps this newcomer had something to offer. HMPH. He's not like the rest of the people in this room. He acts like a ninja, not a student. Strange how he arrives only on the last day of class, and knows everything that we worked for years to learn. He's powerful. Sasuke observed, and made the decision to remain vigilant about this individual. Sakura was chatting with a blonde girl who had taken it when Naruto returned to his seat. "Oh man, my seat's been stolen. What should I do? What should I do?" After deciding inwardly that he didn't want to bother anyone, he continued walking up, searching for a vacant spot until someone called out to him. He raised his head and saw the face of an Eskimo. No, despite the fact that he was wearing a parka of some sort. A man in shades and with a collar that hung up to his nose sat next to him. He heard the Eskimo man yell, "Hey, over here," and gladly obeyed. When he pulled up a seat next to the two, he saw the puppy lying down next to the Eskimo man. The name's Kiba. "Naruto here." Suddenly, the puppy that had been resting next to Kiba leapt onto Naruto's lap and began licking his face. "Whoa, whoa, good doggy," exclaimed Naruto, relishing the soft feeling. "God, I hate dogs. What? From where had that originated?" Kiba had the puppy on the table by the time Naruto had regained consciousness. Kiba smiled after saying, "Sorry about that. Akamaru's not usually that friendly to people that he doesn't know. But then that means you're probably a really good guy." As Iruka Sensei looked over the clipboard, he said, "Okay then. That's all, isn't it? Is there anybody whose name I didn't call?" When no one answered, Iruka grinned to himself. Another excellent job. Mizuki stood aside, glancing over Iruka's shoulder at the clipboard. Mizuki loved his job as a teaching assistant, despite what many people believe. Being a Junin, in his opinion, would be awful because of all the high-class missions that carried a high risk of death, and teaching wouldn't be the best job in the world because he wasn't exactly the forceful type and couldn't manage a class. He was entirely content with his place in the world. Gazing at the pupils before him, he mentally tallied the ones who had passed and those who had failed. The good news was that there had only been a few failures, though he knew that some of them would still return because some Junins gave the recently graduated absurd tests. When Iruka said, "Okay, then. Class dismissed," the majority of the students stood up and began to stretch. "Remember, those who passed will come here tomorrow and get their teams sorted out. Afterwards they can meet their Junin instructor." Kiba and Naruto were among the few students who remained after the majority of the students left in a matter of minutes. Naruto was amusedly watching as Kiba attempted to rouse a sleeping Akamaru. The puppy awoke shortly after, and Kiba picked it up off the desk and placed it on his shoulder. Then he faced Naruto again. Sharply smiling, Kiba said, "Hey, wanna come celebrate our graduation? There's a couple of my buddies that you might want to meet, since you're probably going to be stuck on a team with some of us. Might help you with teamwork and stuff, you know." Naruto pondered this for a moment. Why not, then? Additionally, this is an opportunity to meet new people. On the one hand, I can count how many friends I have, but on the other, maybe not. And the food is free. Oh, by the way, we're going to someplace called Ichiraku. I heard they sell the best ramen there around. That was the final nail in the coffin. Curious, Kiba said, "So, Where you from, Naruto? They were making their way to Ichiraku down to Konoha Street. As they walked toward the ramen stand, they simply enjoyed each other's company because neither of them felt particularly inclined to take to the rooftops. Kiba had pulled down the hood of his parka, and Akamaru was sleeping on his shoulder. Adhering to his cover story, Naruto explained, "Well, my dad and I are traveling shinobi. Yeah, but we were getting pretty tired of living by ourselves and scrounging for cash, so we decided to join a larger shinobi community. See, Konoha just happened to the closest one at the time." Kiba gave a nod. "So, how about your mom?" The statement was a half-lie, neither entirely true nor entirely untrue. "My mom? Well, I don't know really. I was adopted by my dad when I was a kid, so I can't remember anything about my real parents. All I know is that my dad is a shinobi of the highest rank in Konoha, and that's about it." Kiba apologized. "Oh, sorry. No worries. No point in worrying about the past, right? Anyway, you've asked me enough questions about myself. I want to hear something out of you." Kiba appeared truly taken aback to have someone take notice of him. "Well, what's there to tell? I don't know. Your family, techniques you use, hobbies." Kiba pondered this for a few moments. "I come from the Inuzuka clan. I guess you could say we specialize in beast human jutsus, and rely on our dogs as ninja tools, though that's not really a bloodline. Just more of a family specialization kind of thing." They talked to each other for a long time. Naruto was appreciative of his new friend's companionship. In all honesty, he had never had any true friends outside of his father, and he didn't want this relationship to end. It was a feeling of unity, a feeling of value, a feeling of belonging. According to Inuzuka Kiba, who pushed aside the blinds covering the doorway, "All right, here we are. Hey, yo." A number of other students were seated in front of them. Naruto made a mental note of everyone present. They were all friends now, Sakura and the other blonde girl who had been fighting with her. It was a little strange. Several other recent graduates turned around to see the newcomers, but Sasuke was nowhere to be seen. The man wearing sunglasses and a collar said, "Kiba." The man who had been sitting by Kiba's side earlier was back. Kiba said, "Yo, Shino," and took a seat next to him. When he motioned for Naruto to follow, Naruto did so. "This is my new buddy, Naruto. He and his dad just joined Konoha, so they probably have tons of techniques that we've never seen before." Before he spoke, Naruto felt Shino gaze at him for a brief moment. "Aburame Shino, pleased to make your acquaintance." Naruto accepted the hand he extended in front of him and shook hands with him. "Yeba Naruto, same here." He pulled his hand away, staring at it oddly, as he felt pinpricks suddenly pierce his skin. He had never seen a bug of any kind before, and there it was, in the middle of his palm. It hopped off his hand and into Shino's, wriggling its senses. He gave the silent boy a curious look, and Kiba felt ready to respond on his behalf. "Yo, those are his family's specialties. Kikai bugs. They let them live inside their bodies and feed them with their chakra, and in turn they have to listen to him when he orders them to do stuff," explained Kiba. "Don't be freaked out by those guys, you get used to them quickly enough." Naruto said to Shino, "You have bugs living inside your body?" And Shino nodded. "Wow, isn't that kind of weird?" The boy, who was usually quiet, replied, "No, not really. The Kikai bugs were given to me at birth. You have no problem with them?" Naruto gave a headshake. "Nah, not really. Everybody's got their own ways, I respect that." "Thank you. No prob." At that moment, a bowl of pork ramen arrived as Shino's order. He silently broke a pair of chopsticks down the middle of the container on the table and got ready to eat. As though they were also feasting, Naruto saw that a number of Shino's Kikai bugs had abruptly emerged from his skin and into the broth. Naruto was not at all disturbed by the sight, even though it might have been upsetting to others. Kiba shouted, "Hey, Ichiraku old man, I want a bowl of beef here and, He turned to face Naruto, who smiled and gestured toward one of the menu items. "And a miso here." The elderly man laughed heartily in response and began giving the commands. 2 bowls of ramen appeared on the table in front of them in a matter of minutes, and Kiba and Naruto immediately started eating. Despite the fact that Shino had begun before both of them, Naruto finished first, closely followed by Kiba, who let out a loud belch as he drank the remaining broth. Kiba smiled and reached for a tissue to wipe his mouth. "Man, that was some good stuff," he said. Naruto merely chuckled while relaxing. The bugs that had emerged for the feast were already being retrieved by Shino. "So, what do you want to talk about?" "Who, me?" inquired Naruto. "Well yeah, duh. Shino hears about as responsive as a wall. When Naruto turned to face the silent boy, he simply shrugged. Well, I don't know. Curious, Kiba said. Hey, why don't you tell us about your dad? It took Naruto by surprise. My dad? Well, I heard he was raised by a family of ninja here in Konoha, but then he ran away when he was 12 because they were being really horrible. That was before he became a genin, so he couldn't be counted as missing. Nin. He's what you could call a wander. Nin, I guess. When he hit the road he began to hone his skills, and became pretty good at what he did. As for his level, I guess he's around upper chunin. For the remainder of the time, they discussed a few topics here and a few topics there. Naruto made friends with some of the other graduates after Kiba introduced him to them. Everything good comes to an end, and before he knew it, Naruto was leaving the ramen stand after there had been talking, laughing, and jokes. Akira was standing in front of him. You done, Naruto grinned and said, yeah, I had a good time. Akira gave his adopted son a look and grinned back. Good, good. A kid your age should hang around kids like you, not spending all day with your crotchety old father. Naruto let out a sigh. Tucson, you're not that old. Oh, that's what you think, that's what you think. Akira laughed heartily, then leapt to his feet and was on the rooftops. Without missing a beat, Naruto trailed behind, and they both took off. The cool night air was as soothing as it could be, and their features were accentuated by the pale moonlight. Both felt a sense of calm that neither had experienced in a long time, Naruto since he was a baby prior to the sealing, and Akira since his last visit to this village. Deep in their hearts, both shinobi knew that Konoha was home. The following day, Naruto got to the academy quite early. Shino and Kiba were already there, and Kiba gestured for him to join him once more. With an early morning grin, Naruto complied and leapt into the seat next to the dog boy. As they started talking, the other pupils started to show up. Soon, Naruto would be able to determine who had passed and who had failed the tests. A third of the previous class size had been successfully eliminated, and there were now many more empty seats. Before long, every graduate had shown up, and Iruka urged everyone to settle down. Watching the young Chunin teacher practically hyperventilate at Sakura and Ino once more, Mizuki forced a smile from his lips. Before long, everyone had taken their seats, Sakura occupying the nearest seat to Sasuke. Okay then. Iruka. Sensei bellowed. Mizuki here will tell you which Junin instructors you'll be assigned to in your teams. When he calls your name please go the appropriate room. Remember, some Junins may be a little late, as many of them have important missions to accomplish. Following his lead, Mizuki moved forward and perused the list of names on the clipboard. Okay, Team 1. Kazama Heihachi, Kusanagi Kyo, and Ayanami Rei. Your Junin instructor is. Naruto ignored everything else and focused on his discussion with Kiba. They were currently discussing how to use chakra to improve a kunai. Kiba had a lot of experience infusing chakra onto kunai because it appeared that chakra control was very important in the Inuzuka family techniques. Inaccurate amounts of chakra could typically hurt their partners rather than help them. Akamaru was currently dozing off once more while lying down on the table. Team 7. Huh? Naruto raised his head. After a moment of surprise, Mizuki turned to face Iruka, who motioned for him to continue reading. Mizuki remarked, oh, there seems to be a small change this year. With Naruto's arrival there seems to be an extra spot, so it's been decided that this year there's going to be a 4-man team amongst you. Alright, Team 7. Aburame Shino, Inuzuka Kiba, Hyuga Hinata, and Yaiba Naruto. Your Junin. Sensei is Hitaki Kakashi, and you'll meet him down the hall in room 115. After a moment of shock, Naruto and Kiba smiled at one another and gave each other a pat on the back. Shino simply stood up and began to descend the ledges without doing anything. A girl on the opposite side of the room also rose from her chair, and Naruto was startled to see that her eyes were white. As the blonde fox boy left through the door, Mizuki smiled at Naruto, who smiled back. Unlike the other little monsters, this child is nice. Honors his elders with the deference they merit. These days, who does that? Kiba gave a whoop when the newly formed Team 7 left the classroom. He faced Naruto again. Kiba smiled and said, man, who thought that I would be with both of you? That's goddamn amazing. There hasn't been a 4-man team for as long as I remember? Shino simply nodded, and Naruto smiled back. Was it Hinata, the girl who was going with them? Simply gazed at the ground. It would probably be a good idea to become friends with her, as Naruto could tell that she likely felt like she was intruding on something. In any case, she didn't appear to be very well liked. While Kiba was talking animatedly to emotionless Shino, Naruto slowed his pace until he collapsed next to the girl with the white eyes. "Hi, my name's Yaba Naruto, Dozo Yoroshiku." The girl gasped as she looked up. She didn't seem to be expecting anyone to simply approach and make such an introduction. She bowed slightly and said, I'm Hyuga Hinata, pleased to make your acquaintance." At the gesture, Naruto simply arched an eyebrow. Naruto remarked courteously, "No need to bow, Hinata-chan. Thought I might get to know my teammate, you know." With a slight flush, Hinata said, Thank you, Naruto-kun. I'm not sure that I'll be good for anything, though." Naruto grinned and shook his head. "Nonsense, everybody's good at something. How did you pass then, if you aren't good for anything? You're just being modest." Naruto was unaware that Hinata's blush had slightly intensified. Hinata said, largely to herself, No, I can't actually fight that well. I think the teacher just passed me because of my heritage. That's probably why. But thanks to the training his father gave him, Naruto was able to hear everything." "What do you mean?" Hinata appeared ashamed that he had listened to the remainder of her speech. Naruto smiled and said, "I can understand if you don't want to talk about it, but I don't think that Iruka-sensei would do something like that. He seems tough, that I can tell, but he's really fair. He's a great guy." With a faint smile on her face, she said, Thank you, Naruto-kun." "No problem," Naruto said, accelerating to catch up to his two male companions. Kiba roared, "Gah! We've been here waiting for how goddamn long and he still isn't here yet." The classroom they were sitting in was deserted. They had been told they were to be a team for at least 2 hours, but their Junin-sensei had still not shown up. Sitting close to the rear, Hinata perused a small book she had discovered on the instructor's desk. Akamaru and Kiba were seated close to the front, complaining. Shino stood close to the window and gazed at the bright playground. His expression at the time was one of extreme boredom, if anyone saw it. Naruto was attempting to take a quick nap while seated with his leg up on the table. The sunlight coming in through the window was warm, and the mood was cozy. Hinata stammered, Maybe he has something important to do, Kiba-kun. Shino stated, "There's a possibility. God damn it. I hate late people." Kiba stood yelling righteously, seemingly unaffected by their words. With a muffled snort, Naruto attempted to settle in. Then Kiba came up with the brilliant idea to use ice jutsu to freeze the floor in front of the door. One couldn't be certain where he learned the jutsu, but based on what they could see, it was only useful for turning water into permanent ice. Suddenly, there was a bucket of water next to the teacher's desk. Kiba was laughing when he had completed the act. Hinata simply blushed, and Shino simply ignored it. Naruto was already sound asleep, so he didn't even notice the trick. The door opened after about half an hour had gone by, and everyone was genuinely speculating about whether the Junin would arrive. A Junin wearing his Hite.8 as an eye patch emerged. He took a casual step forward and was instantly launched into the air. Even Shino had to smirk as Kiba's sniggering ended in full-on laughter. He was to blame for keeping them waiting in that manner. For the sake of the shoudem, Shino was patient and not a statue. As the ice turned to water and began to seep into his clothing, the Junin let out a sigh. "What a day it has been. My first impression is that I really don't like you guys." Kiba shouted, "Well, who said we liked you either?" He led them onto the rooftop and turned to face them after the Junin had used a low-level fire jutsu to dry himself out. "Well then. How about you guys tell me about your names, likes, dislikes, hobbies, dreams for the future?" he inquired. "Since we're going to be working together, we might as well know each other, right? Hey, you. The one with the sunglasses, you first." He was referring to Shino. Before responding, he paused to reflect. "Aburame Shino. I like researching various types of insects. I dislike flytraps, aerosol, anything that is designed specifically to damage or to hurt bugs. My dream is to acquire a Kikai bug that surpasses my family's version completely and utterly. My hobby is to collect insects for my collection." Naruto questioned Kiba, "There are different types of Kikai bugs?" "Yeah, Shino's is one of the most basic, that's what he told me," replied Kiba. The Junin turned to Hinata and said, "Admirable, and you?" After blushing, Hinata began to talk. Anyo, I'm Hyuga Hinata. I like my family, and my little sister Hanabi. I dislike people that hurt others for no good reason. My hobby is origami, though I'm not very good at it, and my dream is to become a ninja that my father will be proud of. This is a first for sure. An individual with a bloodline is not a cocky jerk," However, she might benefit from a little confidence boost. Her teammates are likely to assist her, and I can handle that. Very nice. Next, you. Kiba smiled as he gestured to her. Everyone perspired when Kiba muttered, Inuzuka Kiba. I like steak, biscuits, and pointy things. I hate cats, goddamn sissy things, prancing around all the fucking time and admiring themselves. My hobby's taking walks with Akamaru here, and my dream is to become the best man. Beast team in Konoha with Akamaru. The Junin gave a nod. He turned to Naruto and said, and, lastly, you. His teammates began to take notice as well, curious to learn more about this enigmatic newcomer. Naruto scratched his head and grinned. Ah, well, I'm Yeba Naruto. My likes include ramen and being with my friends, and the wind here in Konoha, it's really peaceful. My dislikes include. Well, I don't really dislike anything, except maybe pain. The Junin sighed inwardly. How could a ninja be fearful of pain? My hobbies includes reading books and playing some chess. I don't really have any dreams. Except protecting people that are precious to me. Now enough about me, what about you, Kakashi? Sensei. The lone visible eye of the gray-haired Junin widened in surprise. Oh, so you know about me. Naruto gave a shrug. Well, all my dad talked about with me was that you're really tough, and you've got this bloodline that's not really yours underneath your headband. I mean, you're the only guy I've seen so far that fits the description. He clarified. Copycat nin Hitaki Kakashi. Kakashi grinned, but it was really unclear how anyone could see through that mask. His eyes twisted up. Kiba called out, yeah, sensei. You haven't told us anything about you yet. Kakashi said, alright. My name's Hitaki Kakashi, like you heard the kid. My likes and dislikes. Well, I don't want to tell you. I have a lot of hobbies and dreams, well. Naruto gave a headshake. Kiba let out a moan. Shino took no action. Hinata laughed. Come on, sensei, exclaimed Kiba, you've only told us your name. As they sat in their new home's living room, Akira asked his son, so, how was your day? He hadn't gotten around to it yet, which is why it was still rather bare. After all, even the most routine tasks were made simple by Kage Bunshin. What do you think of your team? Naruto was poring over the scroll when he looked up. It was the only Yondaime scroll that had discussed his bloodlines, and it was also the last. He hadn't had time to study it yet, having only received it a few days prior on his birthday. Well, it was pretty good. I got put into a 4-man team. My teammates are Aburame Shino, Inuzuka Kiba, Hyuga Hinata, and my Junin. Sensei is Kakashi.san. Akira whistled. And Inuzuka, Hyuga, Aburame, and the copycat nin himself. Whoa, you lucked out. Naruto smiled. They were sitting around the fireplace, lit by one of Akira's fire jutsus, as it was now getting dark. After completing their training, they had a little dinner. They were now merely conversing about their days while seated around the fireplace. Since both the Yondaime and Akira had done it when they were younger, it had now become somewhat of a tradition. They talked for some time, but they didn't discuss anything very significant. Akira described the numerous documents he had to complete in order to have them both accepted as Leaf.nin. Akira merely laughed when Naruto described how they waited for Kakashi. Being a friend of the Fourth's, he was aware of the reason behind the child's habit of being extremely late. Really, it was depressing. To lose a teammate and a friend in the same day. They heard a knock on the door abruptly. With a curse, Akira removed himself from the chair and opened the front door. On the opposite side stood a group of Leaf.nin. The shinobi didn't appear to be here for fun, so Akira took things seriously right away. The forbidden scroll has been stolen, exclaimed the nin opposite. Come on out, newcomer, and give us a hand hunting him down. He can't have gotten really far. The scroll's theft was reported only a few minutes ago. Akira's expression was one of shock. What? But the scroll, isn't that under Hokage Sama's protection? The culprit slipped a drug into Hokage Sama's tea when they were talking. The ninja replied. Then he locked him up with a binding jutsu, and started looking for the scroll. The secretary came in right when he found it and he ran off. Who is it? Inquired Akira. The ninja's expression was one of utter seriousness. Arashima Mizuki, the teacher's assistant of Amino Uruka from the academy. Akira turned around as his eyes grew wide. There was only air where Naruto had been sitting. Akira cursed. Something must be wrong. Nothing like that would be done by Mizuki, sensei. Along the treetops, Naruto flew. He needed to reach Mizuki before the other ninja arrived. There must have been a mistake. Even his father had stated that he was not a poor character judge. His bloodline limit included it. He was able to distinguish between good and bad people. When he had begun going on missions with his father, it had saved him and his father many times. Since he had witnessed Mizuki Sensei's soul, he could not simply go up and take away something as valuable as the Forbidden Scroll. Surely there must have been some error. He almost missed the demonic chakra a few meters away, which he felt rather than saw, because of thoughts like these. He instantly halted, searching for its origin. He glanced to his left and right before sensing the chakra's origin directly beneath him. He almost let out a gasp when he silently peered over the branch. Mizuki Sensei was on the forest floor beneath him. His mouth was tied with a gag, his bandana was gone, and he was bound by chakra strings. He was clearly awake, but in excruciating pain. Mizuki's own shuriken and kunai had been pressed into him around the limbs and torso. Naruto couldn't help but wince at the extent of the damage, which included a broken right arm and a huge gash that ran from the right side of his body all the way down to his thigh. However, the cake went to the thing that had clearly caused the harm. A smirking Mizuki with a large scroll on his back stood in front of the defenseless teacher's assistant. Naruto's eyes went wide with shock. Henge is that. I was aware of it. The Forbidden Scroll would never have been taken by Mizuki Sensei. After class, most likely, the imposter assumed Mizuki Sensei's identity in order to speak with the Hokage. Based on Mizuki Sensei's injuries, it appears that they got into a fight. Most likely in the forest, as people would notice if it occurred in Konoha. After that, it was easy to determine what had transpired. After that, the imposter bound Mizuki and left him here while he went to meet with the Hokage, most likely citing a teaching dilemma as justification. Naruto's hand dropped to his weaponry pouch as his eyes narrowed. He pulled out a kunai, wrapped it in an explosive note, and threw it into the air. At the peak of its ascent, 5 seconds later, the kunai burst into a breathtaking burst of light. Naruto smiled. I made that imposter flashbang signal note myself. I'm not stupid, but I doubt I'll be able to handle you on my own if you were able to defeat a Chunin like Mizuki Sensei. We stand together, divided. He saw the phony Mizuki turn around and give him a startled look. However, he was no longer present. The imposter had flown off the branch and landed on another one in the instant that he had turned around. He flashed through several seals quickly. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Around the original, 3 Narutos appeared, each of them launching themselves at the imposter and landing on the branch they were standing on. The real Naruto landed on a higher branch after flipping into the air. He observed as the imposter straightened up and used a Fuma shuriken to respond to the attacking clones. The big black flying disc of death swung through one of the clones, narrowly missing the other 2. Naruto flashed through yet another set of seals. This battle would not be won by the Kage Bunshin alone. Fire Style. Twin Nova. Fire God's Advent. Kaden. Tsuin Shinsei. Kagami Kourin. A patch of the sky above them began to turn red as the imposter and the 2 clones engaged in combat. The red spot appeared to get smaller as the fighting continued below, but it also appeared to get more intense. The imposter eventually noticed the chakra building up after eliminating the remaining clones, but it was too late when he looked up. From the big red spot, a red pillar of fire erupted and struck the area where he had been standing. The sparks that had struck the ground when the pillar of fire had touched down caused the surrounding area to suddenly catch fire. Though he was aware that it was far from over, Naruto smiled from his perch atop his branch. Someone who could defeat a Chunin with only minor injuries wouldn't. Unable to be so feeble. However, he was no longer able to sense their presence. Most likely, they had fled. Okay. I should release Mizuki Sensei first now that the man has left so that I can explain what happened to the hunter.nin. Naruto made up his mind. The faker could hold off. A person's life is more important than the Forbidden Scroll, and Mizuki Sensei appears to be seriously injured. As if to convey a message, Mizuki wriggled around a little. Naruto hurried to his side and tore the gag off his face. With a startled gasp, Mizuki shouted his warning. Naruto. Kun, he's right behind you. That was the precise moment when the blonde foxboy's heart was pierced by a kunai. Unbelieving, Naruto gazed at the kunai impaled in his chest. Mizuki made no sound, just stared in open-mouthed shock. There was a pause while both sides processed the information in their minds. Then there was laughter. Mizuki's head jerked in the voice's direction. Dimly, Naruto realized that the expression of anger on his face was not natural. It simply didn't look right. Mizuki's aura was normally serene. but now that his face was twisted in anger, it didn't seem right. The shock had not yet been received. After the kunai had pierced his chest, he realized why he was unable to feel any pain. "You bastard!" exclaimed Mizuki. The imposter had taken off his disguise, and Naruto turned to face him. He was dressed in loose, fitting pants that hung down all the way and a blue vest over a black shirt. He wore his headband on his upper left arm and, oddly for a ninja, he was wearing boots. Naruto was unable to see the symbol because his eyes were becoming blurry. He had fingerless gloves on both hands, similar to a Junin's but without the external metal band. Naruto questioned whether he was blind, but he had tied a piece of cloth around his eyes. After spilling past his neck, the white hair came to a halt in the center of his back. He was perhaps a bit older than Naruto, but about the same age. It wouldn't matter much, he knew, but it would be done soon. He realized it had been the imposter. Nin who had been laughing. He had a silky, smooth drawl, and Naruto could tell he was laughing at him without even looking into his eyes. Kukuku. Good try, Genin.kun. But there would be a big surprise for him, though in the end, it wasn't good enough. I've already taken the Forbidden Scroll, and you're dying. I have to admit, I'm surprised that you're not dead yet, since I'm sure I went straight for the heart, but it doesn't matter. Even if I didn't hit a vital spot, the poison that my kunai's been coated with will fell you soon enough. Mizuki clenched his jaw and swung around in a desperate attempt to break free. It was fortunate that Naruto.kun was still alive. He should be able to find assistance if he was able to escape his situation, grab Naruto, and flee. However, the chakra strings he had been bound in appeared to have some intelligence, and each time he nearly escaped, they clung to him more tightly. Naruto held on to the kunai in his chest after staring at it for a while. The imposter. Nin's body posture conveyed astonishment as Mizuki gasped. Then Naruto gasped, "You think that this is end of me?" With a hint of surprise in his voice, the imposter asked, "You can still talk?" However, there was only a simple curiosity and no sign of anxiety or fear. "It seems your constitution is a little better than the average genin. But that won't save you." Naruto laughed, but it was clearly hurting. I know it's the end of me, but, you think it's the end of Naruto?" From his spot on the ground, Mizuki questioned, "Naruto.kun, what do you mean?" By this point, he had given up trying, since it seemed pointless. Naruto smiled as he turned to face the silver-haired ninja. "Don't worry, Mizuki. Sensei, I'll get you out of there, I promise." Without a trace, he vanished in a cloud of smoke. The imposter. Nin leapt to his feet. He gasped, "Kage Bunshin." A voice from the side said, "Not quite." A kunai flew past the imposter as he turned around, narrowly missing his face. The genin brat himself was there, in front of him. Despite appearing somewhat shaken, the orange-clad ninja exuded confidence, as though he had personally witnessed death. Looking at the other nin's perplexed expression, Naruto explained, "Seirei Bunshin no Jutsu. Art of Spirit Split Body. The jutsu that sends my consciousness into a bunshin while my real body is controlled by the sentience of a normal bunshin. I know you figured it out already. You send your consciousness into another bunshin, therefore increasing its damage capacity by just inhabiting it with your mind. That's why the bunshin didn't puff out of existence the moment that I hit it with a kunai." The bogus nin replied, and Naruto nodded. "You created an extra Kage Bunshin, and the real you hid while the bunshin took over your spot, therefore confusing me while I was in battle with your other 3 bunshin. In your hiding spot, you used that jutsu of yours to inhabit your bunshin's body, while you instructed the bunshin inhabiting your body to hide. Clever." After writing down everything he had done, Naruto moaned. "But you've wasted your chance. I dodged the chakra enhanced kunai that you threw, and now that I know your tricks, it's not going to work again on me. I underestimated you, Genin.kun, and that could have been my downfall. It won't happen again." Naruto smiled. He had made a mistake. "You think I threw that kunai intending to finish you?" The imposter. Nin appeared perplexed. Naruto smiled and whistled. "Let me give you a hint. Objects infused with chakra, and only be destroyed with chakra." Mizuki had positioned himself behind the imposter. Nin after the whistle had stopped, twisting his arm back and holding a kunai to his neck. "Checkmate." Mizuki, breathing heavily, said, "Thank you, Naruto.kun. If you hadn't arrived, I would have been killed for sure." Naruto smiled. "No problem, sensei. Let's take this guy back, and then we'll be able to prove your innocence." Mizuki smiled back at him. "What an idea. I'll be sure to return the favor sometime." The imposter suddenly raised his voice. "Don't think I'm done. Mizuki and Naruto were blown off the branch they were standing on by the imposter, who roared. Naruto had not been as fortunate as Mizuki, who managed to straighten himself halfway down. With a sharp gasp of pain, he landed on his arm and stood up. Concerned, Mizuki turned to face the younger ninja. He was about to inquire about any severe injuries the blonde foxboy had sustained when Naruto gasped and shook his head. No time, Mizuki. Sensei. Look at him. The silver-haired Chunin assistant was startled by what he saw when he turned to face the imposter. Nin. The dark blue aura that surrounded the white-haired spy had a demonic vibe to it. Mizuki realized that they had been blown off by the chakra's force. There was much more to this than the use of murderous intent. They were launched off by this expulsion of pure chakra. With a change in tone, the imposter rasped, I've come too far to be caught now. Don't think I'm done. When I'm through, I will have the forbidden scroll, and both of you will be 6 feet deep, buried beneath the earth. Your bodies will be desecrated by the worms, and I'll be free to live like a god. Naruto yelled, Be careful, Sensei. At the Chunin with the silver hair. He has a pact with a demon. This is a Yuki aura. Mizuki nodded to the blonde genin as his eyes widened in surprise. What should we do? A genin and a Chunin can't take on a demon. Naruto appeared anxious. I don't think he's gonna give us much of a schwaz, Mizuki, Sensei. The imposter. Nin screamed, She. Nay. D. And bounced off the branch he was standing on, heading for the teacher. Student duo on the ground. Mizuki was able to grab the orange-clad ninja's collar and leap off the ground just in time, having anticipated the charge a moment before Naruto. The Yuki's force caused the ground to literally explode, blowing it apart. Naruto swore, Shit, he's fast, and Mizuki released him. They could observe the visible aura of dark blue Yuki beneath them as the dust cloud gradually disappeared. In order to get ready for a jutsu, Naruto started to flash through a number of seals. Hagain Bunshin no Jutsu, Art of Steel Split Body. When a few Narutos appeared, Mizuki saw that they all had a metallic appearance. They were undoubtedly colored like the original Naruto, but their clothes and skin seemed to be made of iron and steel, respectively. He knew what they were supposed to do just by that observation. Just as the imposter. Nin leapt off the ground and headed back towards them, Naruto changed his stance and leapt back. Clang! It was the job of the Hagain Bunshins. With Naruto's order, the 5 of them captured the imposter. Nin and hurled him in the direction of the teacher. Genin pair. After giving Mizuki a nod, Naruto assumed a fighting stance. Following the Genin's lead, the silver-haired Chunin also lowered himself into a fighting stance and removed his Fuma Shuriken from his back. Mouretsu Koro. Rage Run. With chakra trails blazing behind him, Naruto rushed forward like a crazed beast from hell. Mizuki threw back his arm, ready to hurl the enormous windmill blade. He collected power with one hand and flipped through a series of seals with the other. All 4 blades leapt to their correct positions, and the Fuma Shuriken straightened itself. Kaden. Shuriken Tatsumaki Bakudan. Fire style. Shuriken Tornado Explosion. Mizuki then unleashed the Fuma Shuriken, which is currently a ticking time bomb. Mizuki prepared another set of seals, intending to use the majority of his chakra this time, while Naruto ducked his head as the projectile flew past him. The imposter's opportunity to succeed came at a time when they were most exposed. Shuriken Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Art of Shuriken Shadow Split Body. Suddenly, at least 20 Fuma Shuriken appeared, moving directly in the direction of the imposter. Naruto smiled as the demon-possessed Nin appeared to flinch in shock. They all ignited like dynamite as the shuriken touched down. The masses of Fuma Shuriken exploded with a terrible, inhuman scream. The first explosion caused a chain reaction among those who had not yet reached their target, and soon the entire area around the imposter was ablaze with heat, light, and sound. Keeping his composure, Naruto charged into the center of the explosions. He had been ready for this and was cooling himself with his chakra. He swung his fist back and punched the imposter shinobi like a bullet, shattering a few branches as he did so and sending him into the ground. As the silver-haired Chunin patted the blonde genin on the back, Mizuki landed beside him and smiled at him. Naruto.kun, good job, Mizuki chuckled, we did it. Yeah, Mizuki. Sensei. Their cheering was suddenly cut off by a sudden outpouring of demonic energy. Once more, the imposter had risen. It's not over yet, Mizuki exclaimed, what kind of monster is he? Fearfully, Naruto watched as the imposter charged up demonic energy once more. He had run out of chakra, and Mizuki appeared to be in a similar state. If the fraudster charged once more, there was only one thing left to do. Watching Mizuki flick another Fuma shuriken into shape, he took a kunai out of his weapons pouch. The imposter appeared to stop abruptly, and his body began to convulse in visibly disagreeable ways. No. What's going on? His body erupted once more, and he appeared to comprehend what was happening. No, I'm sorry. Pleassegii me and oh dear see hands. Non. On hash o, n hash dollar, on hash n, nnnon dollar on, ntn, n dollar nt, dollar tn. U hash u dollar ghdfgef hash dollar. Hashtag y, dollar, hash dollar egre. No. The spasm seemed to get stronger and stronger as it continued. His white skin was growing paler by the moment, and his veins pulsed against it. Blood veins exploded here and there, and a dark fluid trickled down his body. Abruptly, a bulge formed against his blindfold, grew larger and larger until it exploded, splattering pieces of his eye everywhere. He continued to scream for a very long time. Mizuki shuddered and said, "Oh my god." It was the first time he had witnessed such a death. Naruto stared at it in horror as Mizuki shuddered. It resembled an automobile accident. Despite your best efforts, you were unable to turn away. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he keeled over his position and hit the floor, motionless. He would never rise again on his own initiative. His corpse appeared to have shrunk, as though all of the water had been drained from it, and black blood pooled around his body. Bit by bit, his hair fell out, and Mizuki averted Naruto's gaze. They soon heard footsteps coming from the forest. The horseman had come. Yeba-san. Already accustomed to his fictitious name, Akira glanced around. He had been called by one of the academy's teachers, Uruka, and the Chunin ran up to his side when he stopped. The rest of the night had gone smoothly, and it was the day following the Forbidden Scroll incident. Uruka appeared rushed, and his eyes had bags under them, as if he hadn't slept well. Amino-san. How are you? Uruka said. Ah, Yeba-san. Thanks for stopping for me. I just wanted to thank you for saving Mizuki. Wasn't me. Was Naruto, my son. You know him? Akira replied. Uruka appeared astonished. Really? Yeah. He got there when the imposter was about to kill Mizuki. Rescued the guy by faking his own death. I have to say he's pretty good at doing that. Akira chuckled. He recalled a rather unpleasant incident in which he believed he had accidentally killed his adopted son during a training session. He had actually fainted when Naruto reappeared because he had freaked out. He didn't really care that it wasn't Shinobi. Like of him to do that. It demonstrated his genuine concern for Naruto, which was sufficient in his opinion. After that they started duking it out with the guy, and right when they ran out of chakra the guy died. Some kind of time limit jutsu, the medic, Nin said. I knew that he was above average genin level, but I never thought. Akira smiled and said, I know. Pretty surprising, I'd say he's around lower Chunin level, the last time I checked, which is around, half a year ago. Uruka's mouth dropped open. Yeah, that's what all the clients did when they saw his skills. Akira replied. To be honest, he took great pride in boasting about his son's abilities. Every parent should be proud of their children, after all. Thank you for your time then, Todo-san. Uruka replied. I'd have to find Naruto then, and repay him. Akira questioned, why do you want to repay him? Because he saved Mizuki's life. Oh, in that case, forget about it, he won't accept. Uruka stared at him in amazement. What? Why not? Akira smiled. Well, Naruto doesn't like receiving rewards for doing what he feels to be the right thing, and saving a fellow shinobi's life might rank pretty high up there in the category, Akira clarified. He's a very conscientious kid. Didn't make a lot of friends in his life. He's lonely. He told me about Mizuki last night. Said he was really nice. Anybody he categorizes as really nice is automatically a friend. Amazing. You don't find many shinobi nowadays with a conscience. Isn't it though? He's very altruistic. But, I'll feel horrible if I don't repay him somehow. Akira considered it for a moment. Well, there is something that he really likes, and he'd probably accept it too. He caught Uruka's eye. What is it? After searching his pocket for something, Akira extracted a picture. Uruka took it from him and examined it carefully. Is that? Akira smiled and said, yeah, ramen. Stupid kid loves that stuff. Invite him somewhere for a bowl of that, and one guarantee he won't decline. But it's just ramen. It's so cheap. Well, I've tried to introduce him to shark. Fine soup. He said it made his stomach feel funny though, so I don't think he liked it very much. After examining the picture, Uruka handed it to Akira. According to Akira, no, you keep it. I've got 5 copies of that thing, and I don't really want it clogging up my pockets, so keep it. Uruka pocketed the picture and said, oh, well, if you're sure. Thanks for your time, Todo.san. Uruka then fled, determined to track down the blonde fox boy. Akira glanced up at the sky and grinned at his vanishing figure. You seem to have made a new friend, Naruto. You. Naruto pivoted. Because of the Forbidden Scroll incident and everything, the meetings with the rest of his genin team had been postponed until today. Mizuki was admitted to the hospital because of some severe scratches he sustained during the altercation with the imposter. Nin. Ultimately, they had only gleaned enough information about him from his lifeless body to conclude that Mizuki wasn't the one who had stolen the Forbidden Scroll, not even his name. Naruto was currently reading a strategy scroll he had taken from the library while perched atop a log in the training area. He would soon be able to visit Mizuki at the hospital, and it was a pleasant day. Visitation hours had not yet begun, and it was 9 in the morning. Following their fight yesterday, the two shinobi felt a bond form between them. Mizuki because of Naruto's selfless effort to save him, and Naruto because of Mizuki's kind and understanding disposition. Naruto looked up and said, Uchiha Sasuke approached him and halted. The distance between them was now only about 5 feet. Sasuke stood in front of Naruto, who was seated on the log. I've heard about the Forbidden Scroll incident. Wondering where this was going, Naruto said, oh. Sasuke continued, you're strong, aren't you? Looking through the scroll, Naruto remarked, maybe higher genin level, but not as strong as I would like to be. After that, there was a pause while Sasuke tried to come up with the right words to say what he wanted to say, and Naruto studied the different positions and strategies that would help him win battles. It was there. Fight me. Brief and easy, and the response was, no, short and easy, too. Sasuke gave a nod. Why didn't the blonde fox boy want to fight him, he wondered. Are you afraid of me? Naruto calmly remarked. Maybe a little bit. He was attempting to understand the button hook maneuver. But that's not the reason I don't want to fight you. Then why? There was silence again. Why don't you want to fight me? What would it do? Would it help with your suffering? Replied Naruto. Sasuke appeared astonished. What? How much do you know? Naruto closed his eyes calmly. I know a bit, but not enough. Let me get back to my question. Would fighting me help with your suffering? After calming down, Sasuke gave it some thought. Sasuke responded, yes. If I fight you, I can become stronger. He had no idea why he was being so forthright. If I fight you, I can become stronger than him. Defeating him will end my suffering. Will it really? Inquired Naruto. Would revenge help you? Anger began to rise inside Sasuke, and he immediately restrained himself. Of course it will. He killed my family. He betrayed me. He is the cause of all my suffering and all my pain. If I kill him, I can be free. He said. Why do you want to know? What does it matter to you? Taking the scroll in his lap, Naruto folded it up. Naruto grinned and said, I want to know, because I want to help you, Sasuke-kun. Anger is natural. Betrayal is the worst kind of pain to bear. You can get angry all you want. I don't know much about the suffering you went through, and I don't know much about the kind of pain you suffered. But don't let revenge dominate your life, because in the end, the only one that wins is your enemy. Just a little food for thought. Ya-ne. Naruto then turned to leave, leaving Sasuke with much more to consider. Entering the hospital room, Naruto said, Hiya, Mizuki, sensei. Mizuki glanced at the blonde fox boy and then turned his head around. The big cut that ran down his body had been sutured, and his arm was in a sling. Although he didn't look completely well yet, the look on his face indicated that he had enough excitement to last him for a while, even though the parts of his body that had been punctured by shuriken and kunai were all bandaged. Mizuki said, Ohio, Naruto. Come here and sit down. Naruto sank into a chair after pulling it up. He fumbled in his pocket and pulled out a package of peanuts that looked like they had been squashed. Naruto smiled and said, Here you go, sensei. I heard the hospital food here in Konoha tastes like crap, so I brought this along to cheer you up. Mizuki raised an eyebrow after glancing at the package. Jackie's jellybean flavored peanuts? His head was scratched by Naruto. Well, I got it from a client when I was doing missions with my dad. He thought I was a kid or something, and gave me this. It kind of creeps me out, but I dunno. You might like it or something." Mizuki chuckled. He took the package from Naruto and placed it on the bedside table, saying, "Well, it's the thought that counts. Thanks. I wanted to thank you for saving me, Naruto-kun. If you hadn't been there that night, well, I probably wouldn't be here now." Suddenly, Naruto appeared embarrassed. His cheeks were slightly flushed. Naruto smiled and said, You don't have to thank me, Mizuki. Sensei. Any other ninja would have done it, and the only reason I did it's because I was there." Mizuki grinned. Mizuki emphasized, "But the thing is that you were there. You saved my life just by being there, and fighting the imposter for me. And then after that you were still ready to help me prove my innocence. That's something to be proud of." Naruto became more flushed. He wasn't accustomed to receiving praise from people other than his father or his clients. For the first time, he was receiving praise from a friend and comrade. Most likely because he had few friends and comrades in the past. His father was excluded for clear reasons. "I wanted to thank you by giving you this." Mizuki reached under the bed and pulled out a Fuma shuriken. Despite its somewhat aged appearance, it was immaculately maintained. The blade's edges had markings on them. Seals that boosted power, most likely. Mizuki's name was engraved on the ring close to the center. Naruto only needed to glance at Mizuki to realize how deeply meaningful this was to her. "This was my first Fuma shuriken. It was made by my Junin Sensei. He sealed a jutsu within it to make it always return to me no matter how I throw it. It's sort of like a boomerang, except that it's really, really sharp." Mizuki laughed. "I wanted to give it to you, to thank you for saving my life. It may not seem like much, but it's very important to me." Naruto couldn't speak. Naruto lowered his head and said, "Mizuki. Sensei, I don't think I can. I mean, I don't want to accept rewards for something I wanted to do." He was a little embarrassed to turn down such a thoughtful present. The Chunin with the silver hair considered this for a while. "Well, if you don't want to accept it as a reward, how about you accept it as a gift of friendship?" replied Mizuki. Naruto was unable to speak. Once more, Naruto questioned, "Really, Mizuki, Sensei?" "Of course. You'll have to promise to take good care of it though." Naruto then gave him a hug. Initially taken aback, Mizuki soon became at ease. He was somewhat of an empath from the beginning. Quite adept at determining the emotions of others. He had recognized Naruto's differences from the other students when he had first seen him. He was neither an ordinary person nor a genius. He seemed to think of other things, while children his age thought of girls, guys, or ways to get more power. However, he only realized how alone Uzumaki Naruto was at this precise moment. Mizuki smiled and gave him a hug in return, much like a big brother would give a little brother. A few minutes later, Naruto ended the embrace. Mizuki noticed that he had a few tears in his eyes. Naruto stammered out, "Sorry about that, Mizuki, Sensei." "No worries, Naruto-kun. And stop calling me Sensei, it sounds too formal." Well then, what should I call you?" Mizuki considered it for a long time. "How about Aniki?" Naruto smiled. "Okay, Aniki." With a smile, Mizuki said, "Good, Otuto. Now, let's find a way to pass the time. There's practically nothing to do here in the hospital, you know." They considered it for some time. They were fortunate that Naruto had left his deck of cards at home. Mizuki said, "So, hey, Otuto." Naruto raised his head, "You play this." Mizuki pulled a deck of some kind out of his back pocket and flourished. When Naruto recognized what it was, his eye grew wide. The blonde Genin and the silver-haired Chunin both smiled. Naruto began arranging the cards after removing his own deck from his weapons pouch. 8,000 life points. 8,000 life points. Naruto exclaimed, and then I attack with C. Class missing. Enen. Mizuki smiled. The silver-haired Chunin retorted, "Not so fast. I activate the ninja tool card. Log trap, anything over 1000 attack is immediately destroyed." While the blonde Genin moved the C. Class missing. Enen to the graveyard, Mizuki laughed and Naruto cursed. Now Mizuki's turn came. "Kachiyose no jutsu," Mizuki remarked, referring to the jutsu card. "Now I get to summon any ninja card that has less than 2000 attack. I summon Gamakichi." "Why do you want to play that card? It only has 900 attack." Mizuki said wisely, "Watch and learn. I'll now use the Frog Scroll, which allows me to sacrifice any frog card for Gamabunta." He found the correct card after searching through his deck, When Naruto saw it, he gasped. It was the first edition of the incredibly shiny hollow. It was difficult enough to obtain even the standard version. Naruto blanched at the written attack as Mizuki set it down. 3,500. Greetings, Shodem. 3,500. Naruto sighed and said, I give, Aniki. Mizuki smiled, Oto, you made a wise choice. Naruto looked at the clock. Naruto remarked, oh, it's already noon. Sorry, Aniki. I've got to go get lunch now. Mizuki said, okay, thanks for stopping by. After rising from his chair, Naruto repositioned the table in a different corner of the room where they had been playing the card game. He retrieved his cards and placed them in his ammunition pouch. Mizuki placed his cards in his back pocket, but otherwise followed suit. Naruto waved to the Chunin with the silver hair and turned to go, but Mizuki called him back. Naruto, you forgot your Fuma Shuriken. With a sheepish smile, the blonde fox boy picked it up. Whoops. Mizuki brushed it aside. No worries. Oh, by the way, would you like some lessons in using that thing once I get out of the hospital? Mizuki responded. There's a lot of jutsu that can be used with a Fuma Shuriken. I used 2 of them against that faker, remember? Naruto nodded after giving it some thought. An explosion jutsu of some sort, and some sort of cage bunshin. With a smile, Mizuki said, that's right, stuff like that. Okay. Of course, Naruto exclaimed. Though, don't you have a lot of work to do once you get out of here? Nah. All I have to do is help Iruka teach kids ninja tools. I'm the master of that, you know, and one more to teach won't matter at all. Back in my genin days I was the long ranger, you know. Naruto gave a nod. Naruto replied, okay, then. Thanks, Aniki. See you tomorrow. Mizuki watched as the blonde foxboy fled after waving Naruto off. He eyed the peanut package for a few seconds before opening it after removing it from the bedside table. He pulled out a peanut, looked at it carefully, and then put it in his mouth with a focused expression. Naruto. When Naruto heard someone calling his name, he spun around. Panting, Iruka caught up to him. He had been doing that a lot lately, it seemed. He scratched the back of the blonde genin's head while standing beside him. Wondering why he was here, Naruto glanced up at the taller Chunin. Yeah? Iruka gave a sheepish smile. Iruka said, ah. I wanted to thank you for saving Mizuki. Naruto grinned. Naruto uttered, no need, sensei. Aniki's already thanked me. Aniki? Iruka inquired, perplexed. Yeah, Mizuki's my Aniki now. He gave me his first Fuma Shuriken and told me to expect some training in the use of it right after he gets out of the hospital. When Iruka nodded, a small light bulb above his head came on. He turned around and made as though he was going to leave, murmuring, ah, well. Since Mizuki's already thanked you, I guess you don't want to come to a ramen place with me then. Naruto came to a sudden halt. As Iruka moaned, she took a few steps and said, and I guess I don't need these ramen coupons then, since I don't eat much ramen myself. Behind him, he could almost feel the psychic energy that Naruto was emitting. Oh, well. Can't help it. I'll probably just throw them in the garbage somewhere. Naruto lost his temper. The genin in orange exclaimed, wait, and Iruka smiled. Sinker, line, and hook. Naruto let out a moan. The Chunin sensei had tricked him into taking a prize he didn't want to accept. Foolish. He didn't even need to think to figure out who had told Iruka about his ramen addiction, as only a select few people were aware of it, other than his Tucson? He didn't realize he had inadvertently entered the training grounds as he continued to walk, lost in thought. As soon as he heard the sounds of training, he turned to face the source of the thuds and grunts. A green-clad boy was standing in front of some training dummies, punching the lights out of a practice target with a straw hat. Straw fragments flew out of the dummy as he watched. Naruto was shocked that it hadn't yet turned to dust because it was being struck so quickly and violently. For some time, the boy kept going in that manner, oblivious to Naruto's presence as he thumped, punched, jabbed, and hooked. Finally, he stumbled to his feet and fell to the ground, exhausted. He lifted a filthy bandaged arm and dabbed at his perspiration. His ears picked up clapping, and he turned his head to see more clearly. Naruto was standing a few feet away from him, grinning and giving a gentle clap. That was amazing. Unaccustomed to receiving compliments from strangers, Rock Lee flushed. Guy Sensei was the only one who had ever given him praise. Naruto approached the weary Leaf.Nin and took a seat next to him. That was some pretty rough training going on there. The boy in green hardly had the strength to breathe, but he nodded. So, what's your name? R.O., Rock Lee. Quote dot quote. Lee gave another nod. Quote dot dot dot. Any reason you were training so hard? Must. Get stronger. Prove. Ninja way. Defeat. Genius. Hard. Working. Strong too. With a nod, Naruto pulled out a bottle of water. Want some? Lee gave a nod. Naruto poured it over the green clad genin's face after unscrewing the cap. Naruto smiled as Rock Lee sputtered and choked. He couldn't help but smile back after the green clad genin finished his portion of water. Had enough? Yeah, thanks. Naruto examined Lee's hand. He could see the physical torture the boy 1 year older had endured because one of the bandages had come loose. Examining the genin's prone form once more, he saw that there was no chakra residue on his body. It was strange, particularly for a ninja who relied on chakra for strength and vitality. Naruto noted, "You don't have any chakra around your body." Then Lee gasped, "Yeah. I was born this way. I can't use ninjutsu, genjutsu too. There's no way for me to use chakra to power my body up without doing a lot of damage to myself." Naruto gave a nod. And what a life he led, and this boy was still interested in becoming a ninja. Naruto was proud of him and in awe of him because it took courage and determination to do something like that. The speed and intensity of Lee's attacks suggested that he was an extremely skilled taijutsu practitioner. Extremely strong. For a typical ninja, even. A disabled shinobi capable of competing against the best. After all, there was merit to the idea of hard work. So, tired. The blonde genin gave a nod. Even the boy himself would be overpowered by the workout he had endured without the use of chakra. The fact that he hadn't passed out yet was astounding. Lee had been endowed with exceptional endurance and constitution, if nothing else. It's okay. Okari Nasai, Lee.kun. Lee noticed that his eyes were drooping. Wait. What's name? Me? Well, I'm just a person who works hard, like you. Though he knew it wouldn't matter, Naruto wasn't sure if his words reached the young genin all the way. The green clad genin would have already dismissed the blonde foxboy as a product of his weary imagination by the time he wakes up. Raising himself from his seat, he continued walking into the distance. You will have to get these bells from me. They were on Team 7's training grounds. In his hands, Kakashi held 3 bells. Hinata was giving them a tense look. Shino didn't care. Kiba was holding back his hardly restrained enthusiasm. Naruto was dozing off on a limb. Kakashi perspired as he gazed at the genin dozing. Hey, yo. Get up. In his sleep, Naruto rolled over and muttered something. Get up, or you're going to miss the instructions. Naruto sat up after opening one eye. He turned to the Junin sensei and rubbed his eyes. Oh. Kakashi. Sensei, when did you arrive? Kakashi started to perspire once more. When he had arrived late, no one had ever said anything like that. Perhaps this was how Guy felt every time he disregarded him. Naruto yawned, saying, okay, I'm up. He slid off the branch he was on and onto the ground with grace. Kiba turned to the shinobi who was older. Come on, sensei, exclaimed Kiba. Give us the damn briefing already. Kakashi scratched at his own back. Now the entire atmosphere was ruined. I suppose there was no avoiding it. Well, I've already told you that you have a 60.6% chance of failing this test, didn't I? Kakashi replied. Your goal is to get these bells from me. Those who manage it will become genin, while those who don't get sent back to the academy for another year to brush up on your skills and analyze your failures. The genin gave a nod. Naruto and Hinata both moaned when Kakashi said, you have until noon. The person that doesn't get the bell will be tied to the log, and they will have to watch the rest of us eat. The teacher had advised them not to eat. Kiba smiled. He had disobeyed Kakashi's orders. In theory, no one would order an Inuzuka around. Well, except for another Inuzuka. And it had all worked out. Shino remained silent because he didn't need to eat because his buds fed him through the substances they ingested. Alright then. We begin. Now. You two are a little off. Kiba simply gave the gray-haired Junin a wolf-like smile. With a simple smile, Naruto assumed a fighting stance. Kakashi moaned to himself, as if he had given this team more credit than they merited. He had anticipated that the other two genin would perform well, but these two. Naruto cleared his throat. Sensei, we feel that you might be underestimating us a little bit. Kiba went on. And that since we haven't hid yet we're probably pretty stupid. Kakashi's spider sense was tingling constantly by this point, but he was unable to discern what was happening. His non-Sharingan eyes scanned the two genin before him. trying to determine their intentions. They weren't doing any seals, either. They hardly had any chakra residue left on them. They weren't Bunshin, either, because he could see their footprints on the ground. Naruto smiled. I guess you think that none of us have, even though of working together, being genin. Well, guess again. Kakashi's gaze grew wide. In front of him, Naruto and the Kiba vanished in a cloud of smoke. Bunshin Cage. Neither of them knew a Junin level Kenjutsu, which surprised me. He immediately turned around when he heard a rustling sound behind him. The two missing genin suddenly appeared and scurried in a straight on charge in his direction. He lifted his hand and cut them both in the sides without even trying. However, he was in for another surprise when he discovered that in addition to them both exploding into smoke, his hand was suddenly in unbearably intense pain. He was shocked when he looked at it. A significant portion of it had been burned, the area where he had hit the clones. Cage Bunshin wasn't one of those Bunshin. However, they were sturdy. I got burned when I touched them, which is a kind of damage from Kaiden Jutsu. A Bunshin fashioned from fire. Huh. Clever. Perhaps I underestimated them a bit too much. He didn't have enough time to ponder it, though. Naruto and another Kiba had suddenly appeared and were attempting to take down their Junin. Sensei. The gray-haired shinobi found no space to counter and skillfully dodged their attacks. The two genin performed almost flawlessly together. Something that shouldn't be feasible, particularly considering that the two shinobi had only recently met 4 days prior. When Kakashi realized what was happening, he smiled secretly. Hey, look, Ramen. Kiba and Naruto both turned around. Where? With a sigh, both genin turned back to the Junin. Sensei, as Kakashi smiled. The blonde-haired fox boy was thrown into a large cluster of trees by Kakashi's powerful punch. As he flew, the blonde nin exploded in smoke, and Kakashi caught a startled Kiba by the collar and raised him into the air. Good job. You nearly had me fooled there, Naruto. A puff of smoke transformed Kiba into the fox nin as he smiled. How did you find out? Kakashi. Sensei, your Bunshins worked in perfect unison. Nobody could achieve that kind of cooperation in just a few days. It'd take years. Even months with supervised training. You've known Kiba for 4 days. It was a good deception, trying to fool me into thinking both you and Kiba were double teaming me even though it was just you. And here I thought Kiba had managed to learn himself something Bunshin jutsus too. There was also the fact that Kiba wasn't fighting alongside Akamaru, and it was just himself. The Inuzuka don't leave their companions behind. Naruto smiled. Well, that's what you think, isn't it, Kakashi? Sensei? Naruto replied. Well, you've missed a pretty important part. Kakashi's head cocked. I'm not working alone. Gatsuga. Kakashi was flung into the ground after 2 spinning tornadoes struck his back. Naruto slipped out of his hold and gave Kiba and the changed Akamaru high fives. Naruto accepted one of the 2 bells Kiba offered him, which he had removed from Kakashi's belt after he had collided with him. Thanks, Kiba. No problem, buddy. Kiba smiled. In agreement, Akamaru barked and reverted to his previous form as a small dog. Dogs are the loyalest animals ever, you know. Now that we've got the bells, let's scram. Naruto smiled. Loyalist isn't a word. Simply shaking his head, Kiba picked Akamaru up and vanished into the trees. Naruto came next. Kakashi raised his head off the ground. Take note. You risk becoming the laughing stock of all the other Junin if you ever undervalue your students again. As well as the Chunin. But at least they understood the main idea. Perhaps they will pass in the end. ... Shino said. What's happening, Hinata? Somewhere above the clearing, on a branch, they were hiding. Hinata was looking down at the clearing with her Byakugan activated. Shino could see nothing from where he was in the tree. He was only receiving the sense of chakra from his Kikai bugs, and he was aware that there was a lot of it in the area. There was some chakra that carried the tint of Kiba and Akamaru, but Naruto appeared to be responsible for the majority of it. Naruto.kun and Kiba.kun have both managed to grab their own bells, confirmed Hinata. That means there is only 1 bell left. Shino gave a nod. When Shino said, I guess that means we're on our own for this. But that doesn't mean I'll hinder you, Hinata. Let us split up and begin attacking Kakashi. Sensei separately. May the best shinobi win. Hinata, uncertain of herself, nodded. The only sound Hinata could hear now was the thumping of her own heart as Shino disappeared in a burst of insects. No. This is not something I can do. Down there, a Junin is present. He doesn't need a tenth of his chakra to kill me. No way that I can. The appearance of a certain fox.nin with blonde hair cut short her monologue. Naruto had smiled as he sat down next to her. What are you doing here? Shouldn't you be trying to get the last bell from Kakashi, sensei down there? Hinata gave a headshake. Before realizing she was rambling, Hinata muttered, I can't do it. There's no way that I can take a bell away from him. You and Kiba.kun are much stronger than me. If you had to work together to get the bells away from him, then there's no way I can. She blushed and put her hand over her mouth. Naruto grinned. Did you hear what you just said? With a bewildered expression, Hinata looked up. What, if you had to work together? That's the point of the whole exam. Anyo, I don't understand. Naruto gave a nod. Alright, let me explain it this way. Genin operate in 3-man teams, right? Replied Naruto. I did a little bit of research before this, and I found out that this exam applies to all newly graduated teams. Not just our 4-man exception. If this exam was to root out the weak, then why would Iruka Sensei go through all that trouble to form us into teams that complement each other's abilities? Hinata's gaze expanded. Naruto remarked. You get it now, don't you? A Junin can't be defeated by a Genin, no matter how powerful. Hinata came to the realization, he expects us to work together. With a smile, Naruto gave Hinata the thumbs up. Alright, see here, this is what we're going to do. As he read his small orange book, Kakashi grinned. After all, this team appeared to have some promise. With the numerous Bunshins and Henge diverting his focus from the second Genin and the last Gatsuga behind him when he had dropped his guard, those two had expertly planned their attack. It was a cunning move, and they could have killed him immediately if they had so desired. Abruptly, there was another rustling to his right. Kakashi closed his book. Naruto emerged once more, this time with a hesitant Hinata in tow. What? Why is he doing this when he's already received a bell? The gray-haired Junin skillfully avoided Naruto's hard blow to his head. Kakashi couldn't understand. Was it just him, or had Naruto slowed a little? The gray-haired Junin glanced again at the blonde Genin below him as he backflipped onto a branch of another tree. Naruto appeared to have slightly altered his fighting stance as well. Kakashi moaned as he dodged a Juken blow from the left, realizing that without his Sharingan, Naruto's bizarre fighting style that used Bunshin and the Juken would seriously disadvantage him. In addition to being skilled at transferring their opponents into positions that the Juken could exploit, the Bunshins were excellent at absorbing blows like sponges. In relation to Bunshins, Naruto had yet to execute a Bunshin. Given that he had been bombarding those things like ads earlier, that was odd. Hey, hold on a minute. Bunshin. What a fantastic concept. He quickly sealed himself and swapped himself out for a cage Bunshin while hiding behind some foliage in silence. He was silently grateful that neither of his students beneath him had yet been trained to sense chakra as he watched the gray-haired clone battle his students. Yes. He was fairly certain that this would be the squad. To officially pass them, he only needed the Aburame child to demonstrate some teamwork. He chuckled to himself when he suddenly noticed the Kikai bug on his left shoulder. He touched his waist with his hand. Yes, the final bell had rung. Naruto and Hinata halted their battle with the clone and looked in the direction of his hiding spot. Though he guessed it was incorrect now, he had been certain that the Hyuga would have been occupied by the constant fighting. Regarding Naruto. That was a pretty good deception you pulled off there, Shino. The bug boy, clutching a bell, took Naruto's place as he disappeared in a cloud of smoke. So, the only person who hasn't gotten a bell here yet is Hinata? Kakashi inquired. Kiba and Naruto exchanged glances, while Shino appeared uninterested. Hinata cast her gaze down. I've failed. She was struck with the thought. She had not succeeded. She failed herself, the main house, her father, and the honor of the Hyuga. Tears were streaming down her cheeks. Now there was nothing to do. She would always be remembered as the heiress who failed her Genin exam. It would go on forever. Above all, her father valued the Hyuga's honor, and the idea of his own daughter being so frail. She felt herself about to cry, but fiercely suppressed it. She would be proud to fail if she did. Though Hinata knew it couldn't last long, the small amount of bravery she usually kept hidden deep inside herself had surfaced. If only. Had she been a little more resilient. A bell suddenly flew into the air and landed at her feet. Hinata gazed up at the blonde fox.nin and met her eyes. Naruto simply said, "Take it." She could see that he meant it, even though his expression was a little hesitant. "I don't need it." Kiba gave his newest friend a startled look. Really? Inquired Kiba. Yeah, said Naruto. I can tell you need it more than I do. He had been able to accomplish this primarily because of his bloodline. However, he couldn't help but feel a sense of kinship with the poor girl based on her dejected posture and facial expression. He was certain that she had a difficult childhood. The whole thing about her, her lack of confidence. They all talked about the extreme pressure from their families. He knew deep down that he didn't want to risk losing his chance to become a shinobi, but Naruto told the bashful girl, "You just lack confidence, that's all. I can't help you out that much. I'm not good with feelings. You can become a great kunoichi. Kiba and Shino will be great teammates for you. I haven't known them very long, but I can tell that they're both very loyal to their friends." He looked over at Kiba. "Help her out, Kiba, I'll join you next year." Kiba's shocked expression had changed to one of pride. Naruto looked over at Shino. "Hey, I don't know you very well, but I can count on you to help her out, right?" As uninterested as ever, Shino nodded. Naruto faced Hinata once more. "Good luck, Hinata." The three other genins were left to think for themselves as Naruto turned away from the group and left the training grounds with his hands in his pockets and his posture straight. Kiba turned to Kakashi and threw the bell to him after a few seconds. Kiba clarified as Kakashi gazed absently into the dog Nin's face. "I'm not going on a team like this. Naruto is my friend now, and friends don't leave other friends behind. Sorry, Hinata. I can tell that you've got the potential to be great, but I'm not going on without Naruto. Even though I've only met him a few days ago, he's a great guy. He'd definitely save my ass in a fight, and that's the kind of teammate that I want as a genin. Shino, you take good care of her now like Naruto said. I'll be seeing you next year, just you wait." The dog. Nin then turned to leave. Feeling proud of his master for displaying such maturity, Akamaru followed him. With their noses up in the air, they both left and headed into Konoha's streets. Their lost opportunity to become genin did not depress them. The repercussions of their behavior did not frighten them. They were aware that dogs were the most devoted creatures on the planet. Shino also turned to face Kakashi as Kiba vanished around the corner. He pulled the bell from his pocket and threw it at the Junin with the silver hair. Kakashi remarked, "I guess you too, huh? My place is with both Kiba, and recently Naruto too," said Shino. "My apologies, Hinata, but like Kiba said, I cannot imagine a genin team without either of them." Shino bowed before vanishing in a Kikai bug cloud. As Hinata glanced at the bell she was holding, she thought about her father once more. All of a sudden, the idea of the clan leader no longer alarmed her. She recognized her teammates' resolve after focusing on their eyes while they made a poor decision. They hadn't even hesitated. She sensed their power within herself. She handed the bell to Kakashi in silence. "Why?" inquired the Junin with the silver hair. "They did this for you." With almost every trace of the bashful young girl gone, she grinned. A resolute and fearless young lady took her place. She said, I really didn't want to fail," and then came after her teammates. "I can tell. They're all really strong, because it takes strength for them to do something like that. I'll go back too. It wouldn't feel right, succeeding only because my teammates willingly failed for me. I'll go back too, and because they're there, it wouldn't be so bad." She spun around and vanished into the throngs of people that clogged the Hidden Leaf streets. Kakashi grinned while closing his lone healthy eye. He slipped the bells into his pocket without a word, examining the stone tablet that was situated in the center of the clearing and approaching it. The stone had a lot of dust on it. One name and its description were obscured by dust, which the gray-haired Junin carefully brushed off. Long ago, he had committed its location to memory. Obito Uchiha. He demonstrated to us the value of cooperation. He demonstrated to us that a person's worth is determined by the lengths they will go to for another. I hope you rest in peace, respected Uchiha. Grinning, he stood up. He pulled out his small orange book and raised his gaze to the sky. After years of searching, he had finally found the team he desired. Kakashi. Sensei. Scowled Naruto. I don't think this qualifies as a job. They were standing on an elderly woman's back lawn. Hinata was carrying a few bags of seeds. Kiba had a watering can. Shino had nothing, his bugs could take care of it just fine. And Naruto was holding a hoe. Kakashi went over the small piece of paper that explained the work. Kakashi turned the slip of paper back into his pocket after confirming, "Wait. Help Sadako.san plant petunias. Yep, this is the right job alright." Shino said, "Kakashi. Sensei. I don't think that's what Naruto means." Yeah, exclaimed Kiba. When are we gonna get a real mission, huh? And I don't mean all this catching, grocery, buying shit. I want some blood, sweat, and tears. Embarrassed by her teammates' lack of manners, Hinata simply covered her face with her hands. Kakashi remarked, "Kiba, there's a lady present." After taking a quick glance around before focusing on Hinata, Kiba scratched his head and gave a sheepish smile. "Alright then. If you're really in desperate need of a higher ranked mission, I guess I'll have to ask Hokage Sama about this. But don't get your hopes up, and you've still got to finish this mission." Each of them sighed and went to work. Everyone believed they had failed their genin test, but they did so with pride. Kiba's father congratulated his son for showing loyalty worthy of an Inuzuka. Naruto's father simply threw him a book and instructed him to study it for a while. Hinata's father yelled at her, and Shino's family was unconcerned except for his mother, who fussed over him. She wasn't Aburame. Naruto read it briefly and discovered that it was a manual on teamwork. You can only imagine how shocked they were when Kakashi Sensei showed up at their door the following day, 2 hours late, and asked to see his students. Kiba's father gave him some fatherly advice. Naruto's father had been sleeping in, Hinata's father had disregarded her, and Shino's father remained unconcerned. However, the recently graduated genin didn't care. They were now proficient ninjas. They had not failed. Prior to receiving their first D-rank mission, it had been one of their best days ever. After that, it rapidly deteriorated. As he put away some documents, the Sandaime remarked, "Okay, then. That's another mission finished. I suppose you'd like another mission then?" "Well, one just came in. It seems like the Fire Lord's wife has lost her cat again, and has asked for a team of ninja to help her find it." Naruto let out a sigh. That mission has already occurred at least 20 times for them. Seeing the Fire Lord's wife also made it clear why the stupid cat kept escaping. He could sense Hinata's annoyance, though she wouldn't say it, of course. Shino's icy rage, and Kiba's raging rage next to him. It appeared as though he should once more act as the mediator. According to Naruto, Hokage Sama, the elderly man looked up at him. "I think we've had enough of these D-rank missions, and I'm pretty sure my teammates share my sentiment as well. So, may we please have a C-rank mission for once? I don't see how it'll hurt." After giving this some thought, Sandaime turned to Kakashi. The gray-haired Junin confirmed, "I have seen my students in motion, and they're definitely ready for a C-rank mission. They also have incredible teamwork for a genin team. Though I might suggest that we invite another team along." Naruto gave Kakashi a quick look. The Junin with the silver hair simply lifted a finger to his lips. The silent sign. The Hokage glanced down at the papers on his desk once more after glancing at the two. Sarutobi replied, "Yes. Well, let's see here. Here's a pretty good mission for a first timer. It's a protection mission. I'll have a look through the other genin team's records and see who else has applied for a C-rank mission. I'll have to trust in your judgment then, Kakashi. I know you won't let me down." In response, Kakashi saluted, "Yes, Hokage Sama." Naruto caught the Hokage's attention. "So," Sarutobi said, "what do you think of the village, Naruto-kun? You've only recently arrived here. Have you gotten used to it yet?" Although Kiba pretended to be uninterested, Naruto knew he was paying close attention to everything they said. The dog. Nin had always been interested in the fox. Nin's life prior to his arrival in Konoha, for whatever reason. "Well yeah, it's great not having to move around all the time," Naruto replied. "And life in Konoha is a lot more stable than being a wander. Nin. There's no worries about running out of clients and stuff. It's great." The Sandaime, who resembled someone's favorite grandfather, grinned. Good. I heard from your father that you both used to live in the wave." The Sandaime responded. Naruto gave a nod. "Then it might be of interest to you that it's the destination of your client. You might be able to see your old neighborhood again." Naruto gave a nod. Sandaime nodded when Kakashi said, "If that's all then, Hokage Sama." Before a loud explosion signaled the arrival of something rather odd, the gray-haired Junin started to usher his students out of the room. A short child, likely still in the academy, was standing on the other side of the room when the door swung open, holding a sharpened kunai in one hand. He let out a battle cry and charged forward, determined to defeat the Hokage. Kiba and Naruto were both about to interrupt when Kakashi gestured for them to stop by placing a hand on their shoulders. "Shish. Just watch." The young assassin appeared to be roiling with rage. The child shouted, "Die you old bastard. Today's the day you're going down and the day I'm gonna finally become Hokage." With a sigh, the Sandaime went back to his paperwork. The boy stumbled over his own feet and fell to the ground just as he was ready to thrust the kunai into the old man's neck. The Hokage glanced at his desk's top. "Must you always do this, Konohamaru?" The black-haired boy screamed. "Shut up, old man. Your stupid trap might have gotten me today, but I'll get you next time." Kakashi simply shrugged as Naruto and Kiba exchanged disbelieving glances. Hinata merely fidgeted, and Shino, as usual, showed no interest. Before focusing on the blonde fox. Nin, Konohamaru glanced around the room. "You," Naruto gestured to his own body. "Me? Yes. You? That was your trap, wasn't it? I thought so. Come over here. Let's see you duke it out with me like a man." Naruto gaped in disbelief. "But, you just tripped over yourself." "That's what you want me to think." As if pleading for assistance, Naruto glanced around the room. Hinata flushed, Kiba smiled, Shino remained uninterested, and Kakashi shrugged. "Come here. So you're too afraid to fight me, now that I know you're the one who set the trap? I knew it. Chicken, 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 chicken." Anger flared up inside Naruto's chest. This child was beginning to irritate him, even though he had long since learned to control his emotions. No one, not even a child, got away with calling Uzumaki Naruto a coward. He rolled up his sleeves and walked over to the child. With a cry of, "All right. Bring it on, punk." Wuss! The child jumped into a boxing stance and began to make small crosses and jabs. He wasn't particularly menacing, and Naruto looked at him and perspired. The scene was kind of cute, and Hinata giggled a little. "I'm gonna kick your ass so hard you're gonna be kissing the moon." Sweating once more, Naruto gestured as though he was going to punch the child. A Junin suddenly rushed through the doorway. He appeared to have an air of exclusivity and wore black sunglasses. "Young master, Konohamaru." Sama, perplexed, Naruto glanced down at the child. "Konohamaru. Sama?" The tiny pipsqueak smiled, seemingly to mock him. "That's right, I'm the Sandame's grandson." When Naruto turned to face the Hokage, the elderly man sighed and nodded. Then he glanced back at the child and then back at his fist. Konohamaru gave a cheeky smile. "Yes, exactly. When I heard that, no one would ever dare to punch me. So, like I give a shit." Then, using all of his strength, Naruto decked Konohamaru, sending the small midget flying out the window and over there. The Junin with the black glasses that had just exploded turned white, Kakashi moaned, Kiba smiled. Shino remained unconcerned. Hinata gasped, and the Hokage gazed at the midget's exit point with a hint of relief on his face. "Do you know what you've done? As cool as you like," Naruto said. "Yeah, I booted a spoiled brat out the window, big deal." And left the room. Shino was, you guessed it, unconcerned, while Kiba's smile had transformed into uncontrollable laughter. Kakashi simply shrugged, and Hinata gaped. "That's what he's been doing a lot lately. Hey, I'm the super bridge builder Tazuna, and you guys are the ones that are going to be protecting me." They went to the mission house, where they were supposed to meet the client. But the fat elderly man before them did not appear to be the kind of bridge builder they had anticipated. They finally sat down to hear the story of the inebriated old man in front of them after several rounds of verifying the photo ID and establishing that he was, in fact, Tazuna the bridge builder. "Yeah," said Kakashi, "though there will be another team joining us later." "Right. Better be. Are you sure these kids are gonna be enough?" Tazuna responded. Although it wasn't as severe as Kiba's rage, Naruto could sense a hint of annoyance rising. Indeed, the dog. Nin has the ability to be extremely expressive when he feels like it and at all other times as well. Kakashi also appeared to sense this. "Well, these are my students, and they're really very powerful," Kakashi replied. "They aren't exactly Junin level, but for a C-rank mission, they will definitely be enough, and if all fails and worst comes to worst, I'll be sure to protect you and get you to your destination. After all, these are just bandits we're going to be dealing with, right?" Although he didn't give it much thought, Naruto noticed Tazuna twitch uneasily at this declaration. "Oh yeah, good then. When's the other team coming?" Tazuna responded. Kakashi pulled a watch from his pockets and looked at it. "Funny, they should be here right." With a poof, 3 shinobi materialized. Kakashi finished. "Now, how are you doing, Kurenai?" The busty Kunoichi looked around at his students, ignoring the Junin with the silver hair. Her gaze appeared to light up with recognition as it swept over Hinata, Kiba, Shino, and Naruto. Kurenai inquired, "So, these are the genin that took the bells from you?" Kakashi cleared his throat. "Well, I went easy on them so." Naruto made eye contact with one of the genin who had accompanied Kurenai as the two Junin spoke. Naruto could sense his bloodline limit reverting to its previous state as Uchiha Sasuke gazed back at him. There was a spirit of retaliation in this child. It wasn't organic. Something had to be here. This kind of trouble could not be caused by even the worst betrayals. Naruto said, "Hey." Sasuke nodded, acknowledging his presence. As though sensing the tension and impending fight in the air, Kiba and Sakura both glanced between the two. For a few moments, neither of them did anything but stare at the other. They eventually grew bored and began talking to one another. There was an awkward silence for a while. The angry silence was finally broken when Sasuke remarked, "You had better graduation marks than I did." "Oh, really?" inquired Naruto. "Uruka. Sensei didn't tell me what my marks were. All he told me was that I passed." "Student records are public. All you have to do is to ask for them," Sasuke replied. "Thanks for the info. Might want to check up on that later," Naruto replied. There was silence for a while longer, but now it was a little less awkward. "So, is there any reason you wanted to talk to me?" replied Naruto. Sasuke pondered this for a while. He didn't know, too, inwardly. Why was he interested in this kid when he had hardly ever spoken to him before? Making the effort to locate him, speak with him, and examine his marks. But he knew the reason deep down. All he knew was that he didn't realize it. "How do you know so much about me?" Naruto grinned gradually. Naruto realized, so that's what you want to know. "I know nothing about you, nothing at all. Maybe a bit, but that bit doesn't just apply to you. It applies to everyone around us, because we're all human. You've got the look of betrayal on you. It could either be you betraying or somebody that has betrayed you. It could be both. But it can't be neither." Sasuke appeared to be truly troubled by this declaration. It resonated deeply with him. After experiencing some shock, he realized that he was willing to betray others as long as he could exact revenge on the person who had deceived him. Naruto said, "I want to help you. Everything happens for a reason. The day that I met you, when I sat down beside you on graduation day, I could tell that you're hurting. Betrayal is bad. Not only for your mind and heart, but for the soul too." Sasuke's fist clenched. "As for how I can tell, I guess you can call it a bloodline. Anyway, nobody betrays without a reason. You're hurting because you don't understand why this person would betray you, right? You can't understand their reason, and so you are always confused. When you're confused, you're easily taken advantage of, and so the spiral into darkness begins." Even though he didn't want to hear this, he was unable to stop his body. "Come on, Naruto," exclaimed Kakashi as he turned to leave. "Pack your stuff and meet back here in 30 minutes. We'll be leaving then." Naruto squirmed at the Junin with the gray hair. Hinata and Shino were already packing their things. The Fox.Nin said one last thing before turning back to face the Uchiha Avenger. "Think about it. And when you've calmly and rationally thought about it, come talk to me." Naruto then began to leave, leaving behind a feeble-kneed Sasuke, his eyes wide and his breathing rapid. His determination started to wane, and he became aware that someone had, for the first time, questioned his desire for retribution. As they strolled down the street together, Kakashi said to Kurenai, "Oh, by the way, what about your third student?" "Mononoke Kanpaku?" inquired Kurenai. "I don't know. I don't think I've ever met him before, and his name." "Really?" said Kakashi. "Haven't you heard about him in the academy?" "That's the funny thing. There's no proof that he exists at all. There are no birth records, no students' records, nothing." Kakashi pondered this for a moment or two. "Then why haven't you applied for another third member, if this one doesn't exist?" Hokage Sama doesn't seem to accept this excuse. For some reason, it seems like some cosmic force is bent on making my team 2-member only. Kakashi smiled. "Yeah, right, that sounds like something out of a bad novel." Kurenai gave him a fierce look. She exclaimed, "I'm totally serious, and even if it was, it's still better than that. That smut you're always reading." As though he had been shot, Kakashi put a hand to his heart. Kakashi argued, "What, Icha Paradise is a wonder of modern literature. Jiraiya. Sama's like the Shakespeare of today." Kurenai merely moaned. "All right, then," exclaimed Chizuna. "We're all ready, right?" Kurenai and Kakashi both nodded and gestured for their pupils to follow. Silently, they left Konoha's gates. Now, it was about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Just his necessities and a few books and scrolls to peruse when he was bored were all that Naruto had brought. There was an odd dog food odor in the air, but he couldn't tell what Kiba had packed. Hinata only had a small backpack with her, and Shino had nothing packed. Sakura was carrying a small suitcase, while Sasuke was shelving along a pack about the size of Naruto's. Naruto attributed this to superior Junin abilities, even though neither Kakashi nor Kurenai appeared to be carrying anything noticeable. The others simply followed dutifully as Tazuna stammered along, but after a little while, Naruto started to find things a little dull. He really had nothing he wanted to discuss with Kiba. Shino was merely very quiet, Hinata was still too shy to engage in meaningful conversation, and he felt a little strange after meeting Sasuke. The nagging suspicion that the Uchiha's desire for treachery was motivated by more than just the need to repay someone persisted. Since Kakashi and Kurenai were conversing, Sakura was the only person left to speak with. I apologize for the previous chapter. I intended to inform everyone that she would be joining Sasuke's team, but I forgot. Naruto spoke up next to her, jolting Sakura out of her reverie with the words, Sakura.san. Since we're going to be working together on this mission, and probably on more missions in the future, I thought I might introduce myself. Yeba Naruto. Sakura grinned. She held out her hand and said, Haruno Sakura. Dozo. Naruto gave it a shake. I've never seen you before, are you new? Naruto gave a nod. Yeah, Uruka. Sensei said it, didn't he? I used to be a wander.nin along with my father. Naruto replied. This is my first time in a community of shinobi. Actually, the wave used to be my home. In an apology, Sakura said, oh, sorry, I was kinda distracted then. Naruto smiled as he recalled a few days prior, when Sakura and Ino had been fighting over the seat next to Sasuke. With wisdom, Naruto replied, yeah, I see. Love conquers all, Sakura had the grace to blush before using her trademark Cherry Tree Blossom Mega Punch to send him flying in the most ladylike manner possible. Naruto cautiously rubbed his face and remarked, ow. Sakura.san can really hit hard. In the center of a clearing, they were seated in their tent. In order to detect any potential hired swords that might be prepared to slit a throat in the middle of the night, it was decided that the girls would each receive one tent, the boys one, and Kakashi and Tazuna would share the final tent. At the moment, they were beginning to relax and unpack their sleeping bags. Naturally, they were all fully clothed and had their weapons within easy reach. After all, there was no assurance that they wouldn't be attacked in the middle of the night, and bandits were typically dishonest when it came to shinobi. Kiba, who was using Akamaru as a pillow, shouted from his location, that's because you irritated her. The dog had fallen asleep already. What did you expect? According to Naruto, I dunno. I didn't expect her to punch me. Sasuke wanted to say something. The normally quiet Uchiha spoke, and everyone turned to listen to her say, she's not always so violent. She's only like that to people that she feels comfortable with. Kiba faced Naruto once more. Kiba smiled and said, that means she's okay with you, You lady. Killer, you. Kiba's uncontrollable laughter overcame Naruto's desperate denial. Before going to bed, they talked about a variety of topics, ranging from their favorite foods to the most effective ways to use chakra in combat. Additionally, Naruto discovered Kiba's secret collection of ninja, the gathering decks, and they engaged in a few rounds of play together. Before Kakashi essentially yelled at them to go to sleep, they were tied at 8 rounds each. Look them down there. On a branch above the clearing where the tents and their occupants were situated, 4 shadows stood. Their shinobi clothes and the steel armguards fastened with silver chains were visible in the moonlight that flashed down on them. Although each sign had a large gash along it, they wore Hite.8 with the Hidden Mists emblem engraved on them. Unsuspecting. Easy hunt, concurred the second shadow. Ready, brothers? Inquired the first. 2 Junin there, bunch Genin. The third person added, yes, can't get too hard. All 4 shadows took off and landed next to the tents with a silent hand signal. The bridge builder was the reason they were there. Wake up, Naruto. When Shino's voice was heard, the blonde fox.nin woke up. But he was afraid to move. Shino would only be waking him up to warn him of something dangerous, and it might be best to remain motionless and silent for the time being. Shino muttered, my bugs have detected intruders within our camp. I've already woken Kiba and Sasuke. They've gone out to intercept the enemy before they reach the tent where Kakashi, Sensei and Tazuna are sleeping. We should be as quiet as possible. After giving a nod, Naruto silently exited the sleeping bag. Without delay, he strapped his kunai pouch to his leg. Naruto then asked, what's the plan? Should we help them intercept? No, we're going for a pincer maneuver right now. This is they need us to do. Sasuke and Kiba walked through the tall grass in silence. Their enhanced ninja sense was able to detect the subtle movements of dark silhouettes against the night through the night's darkness. Kiba could sense the intense desire to fight them, but Sasuke's cool demeanor controlled those emotions. There would come a time to interact with them, and it wasn't now. They followed the shadowy missing nin in silence, ready to fight at any moment if they even gave the least hint that they had noticed them. One of the shadows asked, "What you say, brother?" Kiba had to listen closely to hear what he was saying. Kiba turned to Sasuke incredulously as another shadow said, "We set them up the bomb." The boy with the black hair shrugged. "They have no chance to survive." "Set them up the bomb now, make their time." Kiba teased Sasuke, that's Japanese, right?" The Avenger said, "Yeah, something like that." "What kind of accent is that?" "That's not an accent," Kiba barkingly muttered. "That's just really, really bad Japanese." "What, did their moms drop them on their heads as children or something?" Sasuke yelled, "Shut up, idiot," but the damage had already been done. The shadows spun around and looked directly at the two genin. Kiba saw how strikingly similar they appeared. "It's almost like carbon copies, Not at all." 5. Uplets. One of the shadows called out, "How are you gentlemen?" and gestured to them. "Take off every shuriken." "They are headed for destruction," exclaimed another. "Move, brother, for great justice." Gritting his teeth, Sasuke concluded that this was a good moment. Intruders. In an instant, Kikai bugs had the dark figures rooted to the ground. What happened?" "Somebody set us up the trap," exclaimed another. "We get insect." "Shut up, damn it," exclaimed Kiba. "Learn proper Japanese or die." "You shut up, ugly-faced dog," screamed the leader. "Break out of bug formation, scatter." "Ugly-faced dog." Kiba yelled the indignant words. Sasuke considered shouting at his canine like teammate for revealing their secret, but changed his mind. After all, he had a reputation to maintain. "That's it, you're asking for it." Each of them blew the Kikai bugs off their legs with a chakra burst and got ready to move toward the tent where Tazuna was being held. Had a group of Bunshin not shown up at that precise moment and beaten the person in the lead to the ground, they would have also gotten away with it. After glancing at the leader, the other brothers took out their shuriken and got ready to hurl them at the Naruto clones. The fireball that crashed into their backs caught them off guard. Sasuke yelled, "Kaden! Gukakyu no Jutsu!" and attacked. The intruders were sent crashing to the ground as the grand fireball struck them. Amidst the clones, the real Naruto emerged and used a chakra net to tie the intruders to the ground. After taking a nap in the tent, Kakashi came out and gazed at the missing nin. "Wow. I catch up on some deserved rest for a second and a party starts without me." The boys lavished him with a series of obscene glares. "I've fallen and I can't get up," Kakashi questioned. "So, you're here for Tazuna, then?" With the aid of chakra ropes, they had tied the intruders to tree trunks after removing them from their original location, face down on the ground. Had their difficult command of the Japanese language not been so damned hilarious, Naruto would have been intimidated by the missing nin's glaring hatred. The one in charge snarled, "Not tell, even get threat of death." Kakashi gave him a forehead rub. That's right, this was it. The illiterate demon brothers of the Hidden Mist are known for their ability to withstand torture and their refusal to divulge information. The main reason they had never shared information was that no one could ever truly understand what they were discussing. They were still essentially at the genin level, and that was the only reason they had been promoted to chunin at all. He was fortunate that they had been dispatched to attempt to capture Tazuna. "Even if you set us up the bomb." Yes, he could definitely sense the onset of a migraine. Their poor Junin. Sensei had to deal with these despots, just like his horribly cruel students. Ignore the fact that he had been sleeping soundly while they had risked everything to bring these guys in. Kakashi rose from his spot on the ground and used a little Kachiyose to call Pakun to him. "What do you need me for?" asks the small brown dog. Kakashi passed over a brief note that he had written. The silver-haired Junin said, "Please return this note to Konoha, missing.nin department. We've found something that might be of interest to them." Pakun nodded after glancing at the beat missing nins. "All right then. Is that it?" inquired Kiba. Naruto gave a nod. Kakashi had forced Tazuna to reveal everything following the attack last night. A friendly Kurenai and Naruto persuaded the silver-haired Junin to at least evaluate the situation, even though he was thinking about abandoning the mission, and the guilt trip that Tazuna put them through was no motivation at all. Of course. Thanks to a friend of Tezuna's, they were currently traveling on the river. The wave was now beginning to appear. "So, what's it like returning to the place where you lived all your life?" asked Sakura. It made Naruto a little uneasy. At the time, he was the focus of a great deal of attention. According to Naruto, I dunno, it didn't really feel like home anyway. We didn't really mingle with the locals. Kiba gave him a shoulder poke. "Yeah, but you've lived here all your life, right?" Kiba replied. "There's gotta be some attachment here." Naruto pondered this for a short while. As Naruto put it, "Nope, not at all. Heck, I didn't even know things were going so bad here. My dad was the one that got most of the supplies. I was mostly confined to the house. The only time that I ever really went out was on missions and stuff." Sakura turned pale. Kiba gave a nod. With wisdom, Kiba remarked, "That's gotta suck." Naruto gave a shrug. He wasn't particularly bothered by it. Tezuna and all of the shinobi disembarked as they touched down in the harbor. They stood about, surveying their surroundings. Now the place was in a state of complete disarray. There were now only soiled bricks where there had likely once been white, polished marble. Children on the streets pleaded for food from the more fortunate people, and the streets were covered in dirt and filth. Naruto remarked, This is worse than I thought." Kiba gave a nod. "Yeah, so you see?" asked Tezuna. Naruto and Kiba pivoted and fixed Tezuna with their gazes. Gato controls the wave now. He doesn't care for its inhabitants. He realizes that the wave is going down, but he doesn't care. But the inhabitants, people like me, we do. We will take back control from Gato, and we will establish hope. And to do that, we're gonna need to finish the bridge. He touched Kiba's and Naruto's shoulders. "I understand that you guys are a bit low level to do a mission like this, but I'm begging you. The whole village together only managed to raise enough money to pay for a C-rank mission. If you guys don't protect us, this place is gonna die, please." Naruto had anticipated this, but Kiba appeared unsure of what to do. "All you have to do is to build that bridge, and then the wave can bloom, right?" replied Naruto. Tezuna gave a nod. "Yes." Naruto gave this some thought. "So, once you get the wave back on its feet, you'll be able to make enough to cover the price of a B-rank mission?" Tezuna could see where this was going, but he wasn't prepared to get his hopes up. "Definitely, so you'll." 3 fingers were extended by Naruto. Naruto said, "On 2 conditions. You pay back all the money, in little increments if you want, but it has all got to be there." Tezuna gave an excited nod. Now there was no sign of the inebriated old man. Tezuna inquired, "And the second condition?" Naruto surveyed their surroundings once more. He could smell the rotting food from here, the kids begging on the streets. There were negative vibes everywhere. How could he have been blind to all of this? He harbored a deep sense of regret and guilt. Perhaps he could have assisted if he had been aware of all of this. Naruto responded, "Actually, no, scratch the first condition. You don't have to pay us anything." Kakashi and Kiba both gave Naruto a stern look. Naruto simply brought a finger to his mouth, the silence sign. "My only condition is that you will run for mayor," said Naruto. Tezuna gave him a startled look. "You're doing this, risking life and limb to save this village, because you love it, don't you? The wave needs somebody like that to help it get back on its feet when Gato is dealt with. Nothing's going to be alright if you don't have a strong leader. The wave needs somebody that loves their village, after something like Gato. Those are my conditions, do you accept?" Tezuna, still stunned, nodded. He invited the ninja to his house in a dim manner, as if he weren't there yet. As they went by, Kakashi questioned Naruto, "What are you doing?" "You can take it out of my pay, somewhere in the distance." Sakura questioned, "Naruto's a really nice guy, isn't he?" Kiba gave a nod. After giving this some thought, Sakura grinned. She looked back at the Avenger with the black hair. After all this time, she had finally understood why she was drawn to him. She looked around her, just as Naruto had, and contrasted the Uchiha's appearance with that of the others. She was taken aback by what she saw when she peered under his mask. He was icy and immobile from the outside, like a glacier. He was a hurt, bewildered tornado inside. She knew he was correct because she had witnessed Naruto speak to him. She wanted to help him because he was in pain. Kakashi gave a, "All right then. You might be wondering what you're doing here. Well, the short part is, I need to see your fighting styles and try to improve teamwork. I've realized that not a lot of you have shown each other all your skills yet, so that's what we need to do here." It made sense, so Naruto nodded. To be honest, aside from the fact that he employed Kikai bugs in combat, he had only ever seen a small number of his teammates' techniques, a few of Kiba's, Hinata's Juken style, and none of Shino's. He was eager to learn more about his teammates, and perhaps their methods would reveal more about them. Kakashi remarked, "Well then, first up is me, I guess. Les here. I've got the Sharingan." He decided to go into further detail in response to his students' perplexed and curious looks. Surgical operation, and don't ask how you might go about getting one. The person has to give permission for the Sharingan to not kill you, and all the Uchihas are dead except for 2. Was this a contributing factor in Sasuke's resentment? Naruto wondered. And who was the other one if Sasuke was one? I've learned over 1,000 jutsus, maybe. I've never really counted. His pupils began to perspire. This man was unaware of his own power. That's about it. I can fill any situation in a battle. Taijutsu, ninjutsu, genjutsu, just say it. Next, Kiba. With a smile, Kiba gave Akamaru a head pat. My family specializes in beast-man techniques. Jutsu that utilize Akamaru here and myself in battle. It makes me more animal-like, and a lot more powerful and faster. My techniques can also turn Akamaru into another me, so he can kick ass in fights too, said Kiba. I know a few simple Doden jutsu, though I don't use them a lot. My main attack is Gatsuga, yeah. Very good, said Kakashi. Next, Hinata, the heiress from Hyuga turned red. I'm not the best, but I use my family's taijutsu style, Juken. Hinata replied. My Byakugan allows me to see nearly 360 degrees, though I'm not sure exactly how far. I know some basic academy ninjutsu, but that's about it. Naruto grinned inwardly. She had stopped stuttering, what a change. Alright, so that means both Kiba and Hinata need to work on their ninjutsu. Kakashi responded. He felt compelled to elaborate in light of Kiba's irritated growl and Hinata's perplexed expression. Both of you are taijutsu. Heavy. That's not always going to work. Most taijutsu is close range. How will you deal with long ranger attackers? I'm not saying you need to be too balanced, but not being helpless would be a good idea. Kakashi made sense. Even Kiba had to admit. Alright, next, Shino. Shino stated, I use my Kikai bugs. I can use them to make clones of myself, attack enemies, and to scout. If Hinata and Kiba's weaknesses are long range enemies, then my weakness would be close range, as I don't have many taijutsu techniques. Glad to see you know your disadvantages. Naruto, you're up. Naruto became acutely self-conscious as he sensed that his teammates and Junin sensei were watching him. I incorporate a lot of bunshins into my fighting style. Naruto replied. I can use them to scout, attack, defend, a lot of stuff. I have a pretty large arsenal, around 30, of long range jutsu, and enough chakra to use at least half of them before I get tired. I use my clan's taijutsu style, he said with a sigh. My biological father's clan. So, I guess I'm pretty all-rounded. Kakashi gave nod. Good. Alright then, how about you help out Hinata and Kiba with their ninjutsu? He inquired. I'll teach Shino some taijutsu, since you obviously can't just give away clan secrets, right? Naruto remarked, well, yeah, as he pondered how he had been forced into teaching. Naruto uttered an uneasy, alright then, guys. Now that Kakashi had taken Shino to another location for training, they were by themselves in the clearing. I'm not too sure what to do here, so I guess I'm gonna have to see your jutsu before I can really do anything about it. How about you show me some of yours first, Kiba? Kiba flashed his canine smile. Yeah, gimme a target. After giving it some thought, Naruto's head was illuminated by a light bulb. Alright then, Higain Bunshin no Jutsu. A few Narutos then appeared all around them. One of them moved away from the others and into the middle of the clearing. Naruto pointed to the lone Bunshin and said, that one. Through several seals, Kiba flashed. Doden. Shinjuu Zanshu no Jutsu. Naruto felt his Bunshin sink as if something were holding onto his legs after he slammed his hand into the ground. But it didn't help him when his Bunshin sank under the ground, leaving only its head up, no matter how hard he made it struggle. The Higain glared at the real Naruto, who simply shrugged. Nodding, Naruto remarked, good work, Kiba. Though I'm not sure that's what Kakashi Sensei is ASKIGN for when he said long range. Kiba gave a nod. He said sheepishly, yeah, I can see that. But the only other one I know is a Doden defense jutsu. Naruto gave a nod. Yeah, we're gonna have to work on that. You have an affinity for Doden jutsu, right? From the sidelines, Akamaru gave a bark, and Kiba scratched his head. Affinity. Wa, An affinity. It's when you're better with a certain type of jutsu than another. Like how I'm good with bunchins when my dad can't pull off cage to save his life. Kiba considered this. Well, I guess so. That's probably why my mom only taught me Doden when she taught Sis Kaden. Naruto grinned. He pulled a scroll out of his vest and said, "All right, then, we know what you've got to work on. I've got just the thing here." Kiba caught it and flipped it open after he tossed it to him. Kiba inquired, "A list of Doden jutsu?" "Yeah, you might want to study the theory a bit before you try practical. That's what works best for me, anyway." Kiba sat down under a tree to study it, but he gave it a dirty look. Although he disliked theory, Naruto wouldn't lead him astray, would he? It's funny that after just 1 week of getting to know the man, he already felt that way. After giving it some thought, he realized Naruto had that kind of impact on people. A missing nin could likely be befriended by a smartass as well. Naruto said slowly, "All right, Hinata. You don't use a lot of jutsu, do you?" Shyly, Hinata shook her head. Naruto smiled. Naruto remarked, "Well, we're gonna have to fix that. My dad always says that the only thing that differentiates a ninja from a martial artist is that they use more than taijutsu. I'm not saying taijutsu's bad, especially for people with no other options." He reflected on Rock Lee's drive. But a good shinobi has to use a mix, neither over-specializing nor being too balanced. After taking in this information, Hinata nodded. "Here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna teach you a list of useless jutsu, and you're going to tell me which ones you find the easiest to learn. 9 times out of 10 that's your affinity, okay?" Naruto asked, and Hinata replied with a nod. She was becoming interested in this affinity talk. Something she could do well on her own. "Here's a list of them, I'll help you with any parts you don't understand." One of the illiterate demonic brothers exclaimed, "Damn them. Idiots." He was the older brother, Onitaro. "Set us up the trap." Uniro, the second brother, remained unconscious. He was the one who, when they attempted to raid the camp, was beaten to the ground by the blonde kid. He now had a big bump on his head and swirly eyes. Gensanro, the third brother, kicked him. "According to Gensanro, I think he get dead." The fourth brother, Akuyanro, snorted. The brothers fell silent as Akuyanro uttered the words, "He stupid idiot, die not easy." All of a sudden, they sensed chakra behind them. Before realizing who it was, Onitaro briefly believed it might be reinforcements the Leaf Nin had sent for. His brothers were about to panic, but he quickly calmed them down. Onitaro said, "Up shut, idiots, reinforcements come." The dark figure gave a nod. A chakra. Infused senbon swiftly sliced through their restraints. Onitaro got up from his place and said, "Much thanks. What big boss want for us? Even though you've failed, my master still hasn't gotten tired of you, apparently. Why didn't you unleash your full power?" Onitaro laughed. The sound was sinister and dark. He said, "Testing waters. Tough, yes, nothing can't handle." The figure let out a sigh. "Do you mean there's nothing you can't handle, or there's nothing they can't handle?" replied the figure. "Start making sense, or I'll kill you." With a gloomy smile, Onitaro uttered, "You can't do that. You much too kind, Haku-san." Kakashi questioned, "Why are you two eating so much?" They were seated at the dinner table of the Tazuna family. The daughter of the old bridge builder, Tsunami, had prepared far more food than they had anticipated from someone who lived in a nation as devastated as this one. She only responded that she had put a lot of trust in them and expected them to eat enough to keep her father alive when asked why she had done this. This was something that had truly moved Naruto. It was quite unfortunate that his father had not allowed him to spend much time outside during his time in the wave. He might have had a chance to learn more about the locals. However, Kiba and Hinata were forcing food down their throats. Maybe Kiba was the only one shoveling. Hinata was simply eating it as usual, albeit perhaps a little, or perhaps a lot, faster. Like a dog slobbering after a morsel of meat, Kiba roared, "We need stamina to practice our jutsu with." "I can't practice if I don't got no chakra, man." Hinata grinned, her face still flushed, but this time it made her look cute rather than like she had a sunburn that would not go away. "Oh, what Kiba-kun said. We must strengthen ourselves. We defeated the missing nin who were sent to kill us. Gato wouldn't tolerate that. We must get ready for the next fight." Sasuke was thinking about revenge and what Naruto had said. Sakura was thinking about Sasuke, but not in a fangirl way, and Kurenai was surveying Kakashi's students, wondering if he was willing to move one of them to her team. Neither of them seemed to be talking much, as if they were each preoccupied with something else. They went back to their hyper speed eating, and Naruto simply grinned at what they were doing. They were very enthusiastic, and he enjoyed that. After glancing at Naruto, Kiba, Hinata, and finally Shino, Kakashi pondered what he was doing incorrectly. "What makes you fight?" a voice inquired. Turning around, Naruto saw that the voice had come from the child, who was likely the son of Tsunami and the grandson of Tazuna based on the way they gazed at him. He looked straight at Kiba and Hinata. "What makes you fight?" he repeated his question. Kiba chewed a mouthful of rice and swallowed it. "As tactless as ever," he said, "so we can win, stupid." Hinata and Naruto both blanched. They would have to practice manners with Kiba. "We have to win, so the wave can return to its pre-Gato state." Hinata gave a nod. She concurred, saying, "That's why we fight." "Well, you're not correct. What's the point of fighting when all you're going to get is killed?" the boy screamed. It made a big impression. Tsunami's lips visibly tightened, and Tazuna clutched his chopsticks. All of the shinobi had seen these movements and wondered what was going on. "Who says that we will be killed?" Naruto inquired. With rage in his eyes, Inari turned to face them and said, "You are. No one can oppose those guys. When he discovers who you are, he will not only kill you but also inflict pain on your family. Fighting is pointless if you're only going to lose." Tsunami swiftly replaced Tazuna's chopsticks with another pair after they snapped in half. "How do you know that we will lose? Have you ever tried fighting against them?" inquired Naruto. Inari's tongue was bitten. "If you wish to remain here and weep. I don't know what Gato has put you through, but if you don't want to fight, that's okay with me," Naruto said. "I'll handle it so you don't have to. Crybaby." When the shinobi turned to face Naruto, who turned away, Inari's eyes widened and he fled the room, turning to face Tazuna and Tsunami. "What's going on here?" So the whole story was revealed. Looking at the photo that Tsunami was holding, Tazuna said, "That's why he's lost hope." "Please don't blame him," she said. "He is not to blame." Naruto continued to gaze at the two before setting down the food bowl he was holding. He got up, opened the door, and went outside after saying, "Thanks for the meal." In contrast to the warm atmosphere in the house, the cold air hit his face, but he knew he had to do it. "Where are you heading?" Sakura cried out from her chair. Before heading into the woods where Kiba and Hinata had previously received their training, Naruto turned around for a final glance. "I will demonstrate to them the existence of heroes. Please don't wait for me." Grinning, he said, and vanished into the night's shadows. It was all quiet. The grass was a new, lush green, the birds were chirping, and the breeze was pleasant, almost enough to prevent Naruto from rising from his cozy spot on the ground on this new day. Naruto groaned as he opened his eyes, enjoying the comforting sunlight on his prone body. "Hey there. Are you conscious?" Naruto got up, blinked quietly to try to see clearly, and yawned as he saw the most beautiful girl he had ever seen, dressed in a kimono, holding a basket of herbs, medical herbs, judging by the appearance of the herbs. "Ah. Hello," Naruto said. "What are you doing in this place?" The girl grinned. "Did you know that the best herbs for wounds and injuries are found in this field? You're actually lying on a patch of them right now," she said. As he stood up and stepped aside, Naruto watched with a sense of guilt as she started to collect herbs that grew where he had been sleeping, and as he gazed at their crushed forms, she stood up and turned to face him. Naruto shook the flower girl's hand as she said, "Hi, my name's Haku. I'm Yeba Naruto, shinobi of Konoha." Haku put her hand to her mouth and said, "Oh, it's not common. Why is a leaf.nin in this place?" Naruto smiled. "Of course I was training. I wanted to show someone that heroes do exist," Naruto remarked. Haku's eyebrows went up. "Heroes?" she asked, and Naruto felt compelled to respond. "Wow," Haku replied. "That's quite a story you have going on there." Haku took a seat next to Naruto, who simply nodded his head and smiled before quietly descending again and turning back to face the sky. "So you think there are heroes? How are you so sure?" Haku inquired. Naruto answered, "Because there's proof. Heroes exist everywhere." Haku grinned. "Give me an example." The Nidaime Kazekage saved the sand from a C-rank demon attack by sacrificing his 4 limbs, and afterwards, when the hidden grass attacked Suna when it was weak, sent his soul to hell to save his people and to erect an unbreakable sand barrier around the village that lasted 3 years. Naruto recited. The Yondaime Reikage. He raised an army of Kumo Bunshin, Cloud Bunshin, to save his village from drowning in the ocean. The army lifted the village up by its roots and flew it up into a mountain. In order to defeat the Kyuubi, the Yondaime Hokage sacrificed his life. This time, Haku's smile stretched to her eyes. She noted, It looks like you've been doing a lot of research. I suppose I've always been interested in the cages, Naruto chuckled. But I can't help myself. Respect should be shown to them. They would risk their lives to defend their villages because they are so vital to them. What they gave up ought to be kept in mind. For a while, they sat in cozy silence while Haku rummaged through her basket and Naruto simply thought. It sounds like you want to become Hokage, Haku said. Naruto blinked. Is it? Haku grinned and said, yep, definitely. Are you interested in becoming Hokage? Naruto considered this. I'm not sure, do I? Haku remarked, well, only you know, don't you? So you were training out here. What did you practice? Naruto rambled, mostly my Bunshin jutsu. Looking around, Haku said, really? You appear to have been training hard based on the marks on the trees. Naruto smiled. He waved it away, saying, nah, those are just my Bakuyaku Bunshin. They explode. Haku blinked. Oh. They sat in the same cozy silence for a while longer, while Haku realized she had never felt this at ease around anyone before, possibly with the exception of Zabuza. There was something about him, she realized. She never really felt it before, as if he had the ability to make friends right away. Naruto was simply enjoying the company of a new friend. Two people lost in their own private worlds, and Naruto had no idea how long they had been there, just thinking, not talking, but before he knew it, it was time to leave. Hey, you. Kiba ran up to them and shouted, Kakashi is waiting for you. We have a guard duty shift today. All right, let's go. Naruto stood up and cried. After brushing some dirt off her kimono, Haku stood up and said, are you leaving then? Naruto gave a nod. Nice meeting you, Haku. Haku grinned. Same here. Kiba approached him as the girl in the kimono left. Why was that man in this place? The dog-boy inquired. Bewildered, Naruto stared at him. Which man? There weren't any guys here, I noticed. Swinging his arms, Kiba exclaimed, dude, the guy that just walked off, the guy you were just talking to, Haku, what's his name? Naruto broke out in a sweat. Well, Kiba, Haku is a female. Huh. That's your opinion. I know that type of guy, Kiba remarked. Wham, I was acting all girly and shit. You discover that beneath all of that Barbie nonsense, he's a hairy guy when you ask them out on a date. Naruto started to perspire once more. Really? Yes, of course. I am aware of their personality. With a crazy expression in his eyes, Kiba uttered, don't be fooled, friend. Avoid falling for it. Another drop of sweat started to form, but Naruto pushed it aside and allowed a smile to appear. As Kiba screamed at him, Naruto remarked, sounds like you have personal experience, Kiba. He then fled laughing. A sluggish voice drawled, hey, your mother's worried. Inari spun around and studied the middle-aged Junin next to him. It was nighttime, and they were at the harbor at the moment. After completing his guard duty, Naruto set out right away to, in his own words, investigate the wave. He was still nowhere to be found. Kakashi turned back to face the child. Defiance and a hint of controlled rage glinted in his eyes. Although it was understandable after the story that Tsunami had told, the gray-haired Junin did not like what he saw personally. What do you care? Kakashi sat down next to Inari and said, well, I don't really. But your mother does, and you should respect your parents. She's worried about you, you know. The young boy skillfully concealed his surprise. Are you here to bring me back? Kakashi shrugged and took out his small orange book. Like I told you, I personally don't care. What you do is your choice. I'm not going to interfere. They were silent for the duration. While Inari sat there throwing pebbles into the sea, Kakashi read Icha Icha again, revisiting some of his favorite chapters. The younger one had a suspicion that the older one knew how long they sat there, but he was unaware of it. He didn't care enough to inquire, though. Inari whispered, why? Does he hate me so much? He doesn't. The boy with the black hair started abruptly. He had made the remark without even realizing it. He hadn't intended for it to come out of his mouth. It was the result of his own reflection. He likes you. Inari's expression changed to one of surprise, confusion, and rage. What do you mean? Didn't you hear how he talked to me? He doesn't understand me or like me. Au contraire. He talked that way to you because he likes you. He doesn't understand you, but he tries. He has a father, much like you did. Somebody that cares enough about him to fight for him. He's trying to understand how it feels to lose somebody that close to you. The way that he talks to me, it's like he doesn't respect me at all. He doesn't. Inari came to a stop, after saying, you have to win his respect. Kakashi got up and turned around. Oh yeah, One thing, kid. You might want to go back soon. It's going to rain. With that, the Junin left, his footsteps barely audible, heading in the direction of Inari's house. The rain soon followed. The heavens opened their eyes and wept as lightning crackled and rumbled. A boy was standing on that wooden harbor as the rain made splattering sounds throughout the small town. The boy was on his feet. The boy was on his feet. He was perplexed and unsure of what to do. His soul was a whirlpool of feelings and emotions, while his mind was a sea of peace. His veins were filled with dark sensations, like the water of a raging river. His anger was boiling over, his guilt was so dark that it polluted him, and he was so confused that he was a cyclone over water. However, he had undergone a transformation. However, something had awakened within him, and it was raging in his heart. He felt no coldness at all, but the sudden destruction of the dam to a sea of holy water. Drops of white water fell like rain on the boy's face as he stood. Something had woken up. As Sakura watched the dying man gurgle in front of her, she murmured to herself, "What's going on?" There was blood on the bridge. That is, the portions that Kurenai's genin group could see. Workers from the construction site were lying around, dead and dying. They couldn't possibly treat these people in time. Not without first ensuring Tezuna's safety. Sasuke was examining the area, sniffing carefully here and there, attempting to ascertain the type of foes they would be facing. He touched the blood, splattered portions of the bridge with his finger and tasted it in silence. The sullen Avenger murmured, "It's been diluted with water. There's a high chance that those idiots of the mist that tried to attack us had been freed by somebody." Kurenai gave a nod. "We'll continue further down the bridge, sooner or later we'll come across Tezuna, and hopefully Kakashi. Sam's team as well. Let's move out." Ka. Boom. As the smoke gradually dissipated, Kakashi remarked, "They're here. Hinata, guard Tezuna as well as you could. Your Byakugan would provide a good scout for any dangers to Tezuna-san." Two figures appeared in the midst of the smoke cloud. Shino and Kiba stiffened at once. The fact that Naruto wasn't here yet was unfortunate, but they could handle that. Through the airborne debris, the silhouette of a large sword was clearly visible, and flying in their direction. Kurenai called out abruptly, "Surprise attack," as a swarm of kunai and shuriken flew in their direction. Without hesitation, Sasuke ducked and dropped into a fighting stance. He glanced in Sakura's direction but mostly deflected the volley that came at him with his kunai. She was breathing a little and had also escaped the attack. After all, it made sense because her body wasn't yet used to fighting. With a breath, Sasuke exclaimed, "Kaden! Gukakyu no Jutsu," and flipped through several seals. He forced their attackers into the open, blowing a huge ball of fire out of his mouth and toward the direction the projectiles had come from. The Mist's brothers were involved. "Hyouton! Mizu Onizan!" exclaimed the front runner. He swiftly performed several one-handed seals while swinging his chained gauntlets in Sasuke's direction. Sasuke's feet were suddenly frozen to the ground by the water, and the chains were approaching him at lightning speed. Shit. Sasuke pondered in his mind. "I'm running out of time to create the seals for another Gukakyu. My shuriken and kunai don't seem like they could defend me against that kind of thing either." But there was nothing he had to do. With the clear intention of stealing the missing nin's head as well, Kurenai had charged in and used a chakra enhanced kunai to cut the chains off the gauntlet. With a swift leap backward, Onotaro of the Mist landed among his brothers. Sasuke hissed, "I didn't need any help." Kurenai chose to ignore him. No one was moving, and both teams realized they were at a standstill. As he awoke, Naruto muttered, Where's everybody?" A few days had passed since his altercation with Inari and his subsequent encounter with Hiku. He had given Kiba and Hinata as much training as he could, and they had both picked up a lot of strong jutsu, as strong as he could teach them, anyway. He got out of bed after yawning. My team is where? Slumpily, he thought to himself. This morning. Yes, indeed. On guard duty, we are. I hope that Kakashi-sensei will pardon me for being so incredibly late. He jumped out of bed and hurried to get dressed. He had opened the window, ready to leap out and grab the tree limb when. Hey. After turning around, he gave Inari a direct look. Though not in the same manner as before, the young boy was staring back at him. Naruto was unable to explain it. It was simply so distinct. The boy who had shouted at him a few days earlier was not the same one standing in front of him. "Yeah?" Naruto said, no longer in a rush. Inari attempted to avoid making eye contact with the young man in front of him by biting his lip. I'm sorry for yelling at you the way I did before. I hope you can forgive me. He bowed his head after saying that. Naturally, Naruto was taken aback. Naruto stammered as he stumbled for a moment in his mind, trying to think of something to say. He couldn't help it, even though it was really Hinata. Why of him? The child a few days ago abruptly changed into something like this, which was shocking. Naruto stumbled a little and said, It's okay. I mean, there's no harm done or anything like that. And I'm sorry about yelling like that to you too. He extended his hand and awaited Inari's response. Friends. The boy did not pick it up. The boy replied, No, you were right. I'm weak, too weak to protect anybody but myself. My mother always sheltered me from things, and the money that my family makes keeps me from being on the streets. I'm so weak. I'm not like my father at all. I want to be able to protect everything that I have with my two hands, but I can't do it. I want to become stronger. I want to be able to protect people that are important to me. When his tirade was over, he paused and took a deep breath. When the blonde fox. Nin saw the younger boy's face was streaming with tears, she was shocked. I'm sorry for making you listen to all this. I'll be leaving now. But just as he was ready to leave the room, Wait! Exclaimed Naruto. Come over here. Perplexed, Inari turned back to face him. He returned to him on foot. Abruptly, as though searching for something, Naruto started searching inside his pouch. As Naruto's hand returned, Inari flinched reflexively. Take it. It was a kunai. Another kunai flew over Sasuke's shoulder, and he ducked. They were fighting back and forth, no holds barred, after he had engaged one of the mist shinobi in combat. The single shinobi he had chosen to fight had selected a different kind of weapon to use on the battlefield, one that Sasuke had hardly ever seen before. Similar to how a scythe can be transformed from a basic harvesting tool into a weapon, this type of harpoon was used by fishermen but specifically designed to be used as a weapon. Sakura was currently engaged in combat with another adversary who also used the same. Sasuke believed that Kurenai's possession of the other two shinobi was fundamentally unfair. To see how far he had come, he wanted to fight them. He avoided what appeared to be a sweetened version of his Gukakyu and another burst of kunai, this time enhanced by chakra. This was more difficult than he had anticipated, but not significantly. Rasped the mist. Nin in front of him, saying, You too easy. Break out stronger moves. It was accurate. He didn't even appear to be making an effort. Perhaps he wanted to get a feel for him before actually fighting him? In any event, the mist. Nin was correct. It was time for a change of pace. Show what Konoha. Nin like. Fight real. And with that, he appeared to accelerate without warning. He slammed the blunt side of the harpoon into Sasuke's side, racing through to him like a greased eel. The black-haired Avenger held his injured area while bouncing back after gasping. If you want to know what a leaf. Nin fights like, then I'll show you, Sasuke gasped. He had also been working hard. He slammed his palm into the demon brother's face as he charged at the same, if not faster, speed. The mist. Nin dropped his harpoon and thumped hard to the ground. Sasuke picked it up quickly and held onto it. Although he wasn't entirely sure how it operated, he assumed it could be used similarly to other polearms. But the black-haired Nukenin was already back on his feet. He exclaimed with delight, Not bad, exactly what expected of leaf. Nin, and began creating seals for yet another Suiden jutsu. Suiden. Teppodama, gunshot water release. The shinobi's mouth ejected a water jet that resembled a bullet, which Sasuke avoided. Sasuke didn't seem to care that it flew backwards and crashed into the buildings that Tazuna's employees had been working on for so long. For him, it was the ideal moment. He charged after carefully aiming the harpoon and throwing it as hard as he could at the mist. Nin. Sakura stooped to catch her breath, panting to herself. She had shuriken in her hands because she was aware that she should avoid a close battle with the Nukenin in front of her. Not with that big weapon he carried that looked like a polearm. She had been losing the battle from the beginning. Because he was marginally superior to the typical genin, the Nukenin had been chunin level for a reason. She was at a disadvantage because she wasn't a particularly strong genin. She wasn't an expert in anything, but he was in the right place to reach his greatest potential. The bridge. He had been showing her basic Suiden jutsu from the beginning. Although she was reluctant to acknowledge it, the enemy's strategy appeared to be merely wearing her down with quantity over quality, even though the majority of them had been weak and slow enough for her to avoid. After all, she had the lowest stamina and chakra of all of them. However, she had learned something from Kurenai Sensei, something that could support her in this conflict. Whispering to herself, Megan, Jubaku Satsu, she vanished into thin air. When roots abruptly began to grow out of the ground and bind his feet, the mist.nin came to a halt. Damn it. As he ran through the forest in the direction of where he remembered the bridge to be, Naruto thought. I'm going to be killed by Kakashi Sensei if I don't arrive soon. He was so hurried that he failed to notice the dead boar lying cut and rotting at the bottom of the forest. Inari gazed at the kunai he was holding and sniffed. He hadn't seen those other ninjas using it, but it was a peculiar kind. It was composed of an odd substance. Tough as steel and white as marble. A piece of white cloth was tied to the end that was not equipped with a blade. He felt something inside of himself as he touched it. Every notch, every groove. It simply became ingrained in his thoughts and refused to go away. Something that belonged in his hands, he thought. He connected with this weapon as he held it and even swung it around a little. Something he had never connected with before. Getting so attached to something that bled was a little frightening. For some reason, it was also consoling. It was something he could defend, something he could use to keep safe, something he could save with. He almost dropped it when he heard his mother screaming from the kitchen. The Nukanen screamed, "Hoa!" as he struck Sasuke's head with the side of the harpoon, sending him crashing to the ground. Sasuke gasped when the harpoon struck him in the side once more. It had been a very bad idea to throw the big polearm back to the Nukanen. After performing a jutsu, he suddenly gained tremendous speed and appeared to be leaving behind afterimages of himself everywhere he went. The black-haired Avenger was beginning to lose his strength and was unable to defend himself. He was suddenly lifted by the collar and found himself looking directly into the Nukanen's eyes. The demonic brother, his eyes blazing with crazed rage, screamed, "It's been interesting. Leaf.nin. It's time to part, however. See you in hell." As Sasuke was launched into the air, he asked himself, did that guy speak flawless Japanese, or was it just him? But when he saw the harpoon being thrown at him, that thought was immediately blown out of his head. There was no time to react because it happened too quickly. He would die. He saw many things as the polearm drew closer. His life appeared in a flash. The times he spent training with his Aniki, each time he failed to keep his word. The death of his parents and the Uchiha massacre. His academy training, as well as all of his weaker teammates. He witnessed both his graduation and his initial encounter with Kurenai. With just one bell, he observed his bell test. He witnessed Kurenai Sensei's proud face as the exam came to an end. He witnessed Sakura's face in tears following a particularly difficult sea mission. He recognized the faces of the people he was working with on this mission, his comrades. He noticed kindness, which he realized had always been present. He noticed companionship, which he had long disregarded. Above all, though, he became enraged. For her, it was over. She had broken her genjutsu. In front of her opponent, she stood, feeling both diminished and proud. With that same big harpoon over her head, he stood. She knew what was going to happen in a matter of seconds. There was nothing she could do when the harpoon came down and split her in two. Even moving at civilian speed was difficult for her because the mist. Nin's Sweden jutsu had damaged both of her legs. You fought well. But don't worry, thanks for entertaining me, your death will be quick. She waited for the last blow to land while closing her eyes. But it didn't. The same Nukanen she had been fighting was standing there when she opened her eyes again, but he had a peculiar expression. Sakura noticed that he appeared to be staring at something protruding from his abdomen. The kind of harpoon he was holding in his hands was a big one. He gurgled, "So, Gensanro, lost," and then thumped to the ground. Sakura let out a little cry. Sasuke was standing behind him. Sakura was used to a black-eyed Sasuke, but this Sasuke had red eyes instead. Although he was breathing heavily and had numerous scratches and bruises, including a fairly severe one down his left arm, he was still alive. Additionally, the body of another demon brother was visible cooling on the bridge in the distance. Sasuke said, "Are you alright, Sakura?" Sakura gave a silent, incredulous nod. Then a miraculous event occurred. Sasuke grinned. Despite the fact that it was clearly difficult for him, he said, "Good. Strange. Both of them spoke proper Japanese. Right before they died." He then thumped to the ground, closing his eyes for what might have been the final time. Without hesitation, Sakura rushed to his side and started administering first aid. "Inari. Run!" exclaimed Tsunami. She was restrained by the two thugs. "If you two kill him, then I'll kill myself. You two need a hostage, right? So don't you touch him." The thugs in the lead smiled and said, We've got quite the tough one here, He turned to see Inari sitting there, holding his kicked cheek in his arms. Alright then kid, thank your mother here. It's thanks to her that you're going to live today. Go on, get out of here. Inari got to her feet, trembling. However, he had already made up his mind. Today, there would be no escape. He grabbed the kunai's handle behind him and threw it. Then he saw nothing but white. Anyone standing outside the Tazuna home at the time would have heard the roar of seagulls high in the sky, the sound of waves crashing onto the beach, and perhaps the whoosing of the wind. However, there was no breeze today, the sea was calm, and the seagulls had already moved. Then a pillar of light appeared, so intense that it engulfed everything. Like an ascending angel, it soared from the Tazuna home and split the clouds it encountered. The pillar vanished quickly after the clouds whirled around it as though they didn't think it was worthy of being touched. The holy shark has been brought back to life. Kakashi screamed, "Scatter!" and rolled sideways into a crouch to dodge the flying blade. The blade flew back where it had come from, streaking through the concrete ground before landing in the hand of a certain missing nin. Bandages and clothes covered his face and body, and a mist headband covered his hair. A smaller figure with a mask and a few senbon in his hand was by his side. Kiba, Shino, Tazuna, and Hinata had all vanished by the time Kakashi had completed rolling and landing. A gruff sounding voice said, "Ah, just what I had expected from Hitaki Kakashi, the copy.cat nin, as the figure in the lead. You are an S-class nin, highly dangerous, listed in the bingo book as one of the more powerful shinobi, aren't you?" Kakashi became alert. Era, so you know me," said the nin with the gray hair. Waiting for Hinata to get Tazuna to a safe place before returning to assist in the battle, he was stalling for time. To whom may I owe this pleasure? Using his enormous meat cleaver with ease, the mist.nin declared, "My name is Momochi Zabuza. But first," he gestured to the motionless boy at his side. "Haku, chase them down before they run too far. Try to take them down one by one." With a curt, "Hi, Zabuza.san," the boy flickered off in a splash of water. This was precisely what he didn't want them to do, Kakashi swore. However, the enormous sword that had just buried itself where he had been standing a few seconds earlier stopped him in his tracks just as he was ready to pursue them himself. "I don't think so, Kakashi." In front of him, Zabuza grabbed the enormous weapon by the handle and swung it once more. "Your opponent is me." Kakashi clipped a few of his own silver hairs as the second swing swung past over his head, but he managed to avoid it. He took the risk of giving the other Junin a vicious taijutsu thud that sent him flying, slamming his knee into his gut as Zabuza regained his equilibrium after swinging the sword. Kakashi remarked, "You're really persistent." Momochi Zabuza of the Mist, who was exiled after attempting a coup to overthrow the Mizukage himself several years ago. "Many of us thought that you had died after the hunter.nin started coming after you, commanded by the son of the Mizukage himself." When Zabuza straightened up, it was clear that he was frowning despite the bandaged mask. "Haha. So you do know about me. Well, the son of the Mizukage was a damn fool. He never saw it coming," said the mist.nin in exile. "As for the persistent part, well, even missing.nin have to uphold their reputation, you know. Otherwise nobody would hire us. So far I've had a 100 completion rate, and I'm not letting you ruin it for me." He brandished his sword once more and rushed ahead. Kakashi used his own kunai to confront him. The titanic battle had started. When they stopped in the middle of the bridge, Tazuna said to Hinata, "What's wrong, girl?" They were unaware that they were close to the location where Sasuke and his companions had been fighting the demonic brothers of the mist. When they were fleeing from the arena of the impending battle, Hinata had been carrying the older man, but she now realized that it was pointless. Someone else was coming in. Someone whose speed far outstripped hers. She sensed his presence, and then he was there. His arrival was marked by a splash of water and punctuated by the toss of senbon. Hinata looked anxiously at the new arrival as she reflexively deflected the flying needles with her jukin. The boy wearing the hunter.nin mask said, "So you are the one that they assigned to defend the bridge? Builder. A Hyuga, EH. It looks like they're pulling out all the stops. But where are your companions? Have they abandoned you? Well, it doesn't matter. Once I'm done with you, I'll kill the bridge. Builder. Then Zabuza. San's mission will be complete." The boy came at her at breakneck speed and kicked her sideways before Hinata could even react. The boy looked at Tazuna, who was shaking and paralyzed with fear, and said, "Or maybe, I should just take care of you now." "Yes, that seems like a better choice." Hinata realized it was the time she had been anticipating. She exclaimed, "Now, Kiba.kun, Shino.kun. Abruptly, two whirling cyclones charged at Haku. After glancing back at the approaching tornadoes of rage and fangs, the boy leapt into the air to avoid them. But behind him, a swarm of Kikai bugs arose, and he failed to notice them. Abruptly, he felt them move up his arms before colliding with the floor. He flipped through a couple of seals quickly and soaked himself in water, which was enough to wash off all the Kikai bugs. Haku noted, "So, you weren't the only one here. A decoy technique." Kiba smiled as he and a transformed Akamaru stood there, having already completed their Gatsuga. That's right. No proper leaf.nin would ever leave one of their comrades behind. Of course, no missing.nin would ever understand that, traitors of the mist. The Kikai bugs were already coming back to Shino as he stood next to them. Despite his silence, there was a noticeable hint of something nearby. He felt uncomfortable. The mist.nin gave a headshake. Don't think it'll be that easy. Ikuzu. Too quickly to observe, a shower of senbon erupted from his arms. Shino was able to deflect the senbon with his bugs, while Kiba and Akamaru fell to the ground and ducked. Along with doing what she had done previously, Hinata used her Juken to deflect the senbon. Then all of a sudden they understood. The boy had vanished. As they fought, Kakashi questioned, "Why did you do it?" At the moment, Kunai and Giant Sword were at a standstill. "Why did you decide to try and throw the Mizukichi from his proper position? You knew there was no chance of something like that happening, so why?" Kakashi lost his balance a little as Zabuza spat as he broke the standstill and retrieved his sword. Kakashi hopped backwards a little to avoid his horizontal swing. The Mizukichi was being weak. Even you should know about the horrifying entry exams that students had to take before becoming genin. I was one of them, and that was how I managed to attain my name of Demon of the Mist. However, in recent years, the more horrifying parts of the ninja life was downplayed. Zabuza yelled. "I wanted to take the village by its reins and return it to its roots." Zabuza's weapon was a large cleaver, which Kakashi avoided another swing of. The gray-haired one remarked, "HMPH, you're a tough one. Times change and so do people. The ninja villages nowadays are not the same kind that existed 500 years ago. Shinobi are not the ruthless killing machines that you make them out to be, and that's why your village has its name of the Bloody Mist. Let me show you." With that, he exposed his red eye by pulling his headband upward. "Ah. The Sharingan. What an honor it is to be confronted like this," Zabuza replied. "And so early too. It looks like it's going to be a good day for me." He then began creating a series of seals after swinging his sword at Kakashi once more. He yelled, "Cage Shuriken no Jutsu," and the single cleaver multiplied into numerous ones, all of them racing toward Kakashi with demon wrath. "Let's see how many of my swords you can block before the rest chop you to pieces." Kakashi leapt and plunged headlong into the whirlpool of blades, emerging from it unharmed. Kakashi duly observed, "You underestimate the power of the Sharingan Eye." Zabuza gestured with his hand and said, "Not as much as you'd like to think." Kakashi turned to look behind him as the whirring sound of blades returned. The numerous blades he had just passed had returned out of nowhere and were headed straight for him. Unfazed by the onslaught, Kakashi flipped through a number of seals. He screamed, "Kaden Gukakyu no Jutsu," and threw a huge fireball at the blade storm, swallowing the group. The original, of course, was the only one to be released. He only just realized it was Zabuza's elbow when he felt something slam into the back of his head. He dropped the sword and fell to the ground. "You underestimate me. Copycat nin." Kakashi examined his fingers and felt through his mask where his chin would be. His hand was dripping with crimson liquid. Hijutsu. Sensatsu Suisho. Had it not been for Akamaru's timely removal of Kiba while still in his human form, the hail of tiny icicles would have undoubtedly penetrated Kiba. The dog boy gasped as he felt the anguish of multiple senbons digging deep into his leg and piercing his skin. That was all Haku needed when Hinata gave her teammate a worried look. Hinata flew backwards as the boy from the mist sprang forward and slammed a leg into her stomach. She only managed to land safely atop a swarm of Kikai bugs thanks to Shino. However, Shino also suffered some harm. His bugs were working as quickly as they could to fix the frozen condition in his left arm. In addition to being a real handful, the boy who was fighting them appeared to have a talent that allowed him to manipulate ice. It was also noteworthy that he was skilled with one-handed seals, which was a mist specialty. With a sudden burst of speed, the white-masked boy grabbed Kiba by the collar and kicked Akamaru away. Kiba simply growled at Haku as he said icily, "Well, I better finish you off then so I can get back to accomplishing my mission. And to keep you two from hindering me, I'll take you out of commission first. He then threw a number of senbon. His throwing style, however, was entirely different. The senbon reached previously unthinkable speeds and pierced the skin of Hinata and Shino. The Hyuga heiress gazed at the mist.nin and the spots where the silvery needles penetrated her skin. Subsequently, she thumped to the ground. Shino followed suit. Kiba yelled, "Shino! Hinata!" and turned back to face the masked jerk. "What the hell did you do to my teammates, you freak?" Haku extended his senbon. Suddenly, ice began to form on the needle with a few seals, making it about the size of a katana. He made some practice movements, cutting a few lines across the bridge's floor. When Kiba noticed the wide slash marks the Nukanon boy had made with ease on the hard concrete, he struggled even more. "Nothing you need to worry about," the boy in the mask said icily. "There's no point in telling something to somebody who's already dead." Haku swung the ice sword downward after raising it above his head. Ka! Boom! The battlefield suddenly erupted in flames. "Damn it!" Angrily, Kakashi thought as Zabuza made multiple seals. From the water beneath the bridge, a huge water dragon sprang up the supports, swung onto the battlefield, and charged at the gray-haired Junin. I'm not sure how he managed to do that. However, he has already discovered the Sharingan's shortcomings. Where? On this mission, I didn't even use it. Zabuza took note of Kakashi's facial expression. With a fierce smile, Zabuza remarked, "My tool. The one that I sent after your subordinates. He's a wily one. There's nothing that he does better than information gathering, other than combat and assassinations." When I heard from the Baka Kyodai idiotic brothers that Sharingan Kakashi had been sent on this mission, I immediately told Haku to gather information about that repugnant bloodline. What he did wasn't just gather information about it, he also managed to find information about how to counter it. Abruptly, Zabuza and his enormous aquatic dragon charged directly at Kakashi. "You'll realize that never once since the start of the battle did I look into your eyes." After Kakashi's eyes widened in realization, Zabuza's sword abruptly split them in half. The large water dragon that Zabuza had conjured up started charging towards the underside of the bridge as the remains of his body puffed into smoke. Suddenly, a loud crash occurred, and Kakashi reappeared on top of the bridge, stooped and holding a kunai. With a silent curse, Kakashi took off again. There would be no running this time. Only one of them would survive by the end of it. A shockwave suddenly passed through the bridge. As the explosion exploded, Haku lifted his arm and shielded his eyes, but that had been an error. A figure had rushed past and grabbed his target away from him as soon as he had raised his hand. He lowered his arm and turned to face the person who had stolen his kill from him as the explosion came to an end and the smoke had cleared. Beside his astonished friends, the stranger, dressed in bright orange, was holding the dog boy in his arms. The small dog had returned to its natural form and was barking at his master's wounded body. Kiba's voice was soft and hesitant, as though he was in pain. As Akamaru unintentionally pushed one of the needles stuck in his body, he moaned in agony and said, "Hey. You finally got here, Can you take care of him without our help?" The person he was speaking to, who was facing away from Haku, nodded and appeared to be grinning. The dog boy on the ground grinned back, but then he quickly passed out from the strong paralyzing state that Haku had placed him in. As he prepared his senbon, Haku questioned, "Who are you?" Haku's eyes widened slightly behind the mask as the figure turned around. They had first encountered the orange-clad shinobi on the grassy field that morning. In stark contrast to how he had treated his friend, the shinobi gazed at him with equal parts rage and hatred. Abruptly, he calmed, his eyes focused. He spoke clearly and loudly, looking up. "Your worst nightmare." It was time to execute the sentence that Uzumaki Naruto had uttered. Alone and silent in his thoughts, 8-year-old Naruto trudged through the forest. He wanted some solitude after being shocked by what he had read on the scroll his father had given him for his birthday. He couldn't possibly remain where his foster father was, because he had been mentioned in part in the scroll itself. He was perplexed and confused. There was also the question of why he had ended up at this remote temple. He had seen it on the edge of the cliff by the sea a mile away. For some reason, he was drawn to the building and wanted to get close to it as soon as he saw its thatched roof. He was curious to see what it was composed of. Why did a single glance make him that way? He had descended from his position and made his way to the building through the forest. He had spent so much time in the wilderness, away from civilization, and the survival skills his father had taught him had been a huge help. He was forced to ascend when he discovered the set of stairs in the clearing that led to the big structure, which he now recognized as a temple. His 8-year-old mind was unable to resist, so he approached and found himself standing in front of the big double doors, hesitant to go inside. There was a sense that the entire idea was outdated and forgotten. He didn't know what was happening, but something inside him resonated with the pulses. When the double doors began to open, red chakra had already begun to assemble around him. The clack of the doors opening inward made his throat tighten. "Sonny, what are you doing here?" Abruptly, an elderly man appeared before him. With a knobbed cane in one hand, he was a small, stumbling stranger. He had white hair that cascaded down his shoulders. He resembled something from a fairy tale and was dressed in a white robe. His beautiful green eyes, though dim, peered curiously out from beneath his white brows at the orange-clad child in front of him. Oh boy, you're all covered with dirt and grime. Come in here, we'll tidy you up and fix you a quick meal. Youngsters like you shouldn't be so far out in the wilderness. A bit of nature's good, but to sample it to such an extent. Well, what have you been doing to yourself?" A little taken aback, Naruto found himself saying, It's okay, Oji-san. I don't want to cause too much trouble." His father had instilled manners in him from an early age. The old man, busy gently nudging the blonde fox boy inward with his cane, said, "Nonsense, what sort of trouble could a young'un like you cause? Come on in, there's a shower down the left corridor, you can find it for yourself. I'll go prepare a small meal for both of us, I'm pretty hungry myself." The protests of young Naruto were disregarded. Naruto questioned the elderly man he was sitting next to, "What are you doing? Living out here all the way, Oji-san?" He had been eating a dumpling when he had the question in his mind, and he had a pair of chopsticks in his hand. He had been led into the bathroom and instructed to take a bath after the elderly man had gently pushed him into the temple. He was a little embarrassed, but as confident in the man's hospitality as an 8-year-old could be, he hurriedly showered and left. His filthy clothes were folded on the floor, looking as clean as the day they were made, as if they had been magically cleaned. He was now eating a simple meal that included a few oriental dishes while sitting next to the gracious elderly man in the temple courtyard. Unfortunately, there were no noodles available. The elderly man saw his curious look and burst out laughing. Something like that emerging from such a tiny body was odd. Naruto found himself staring, but he was forced to turn away when his deeply ingrained manners suddenly surfaced. "Well, when a body gets old, the first thing that goes is the senses. I couldn't handle all that noise in the city, so I decided to move out back. This temple here, you see, I made it with my own 2 hands. Alas, that was around 20 years ago," the elderly gentleman replied sadly. "Now, you might doubt that the old man in front of you, but keep in mind that I wasn't this old 20 years ago." Naruto gazed incredulously at the elderly man half his size. The elderly man laughed heartily once more. He smiled and remarked, "I've been living out here ever since. It's not that bad." "But, isn't it boring?" Naruto questioned, briefly releasing the ingrained etiquette. "I mean, there's not even anything you could do out here. Isn't it better to live somewhere with more people, so you could talk to them and stuff?" The midget elder replied, "Nope, there's a lot here to talk to. The birds talk in their own way, chirping and singing. Birdsong has magical healing qualities, you know. The woodland critters all talk in their own way, their circle of life. The flowers and plants can communicate too, you know. I do it all the time." Naruto gazed at the elderly man as though he were insane. Naruto spent a few days staying there. Every day, he trained in the courtyard, with the elderly man occasionally offering skillful advice. The elderly man, whose name was Seisame, had been a ninja in his younger years and was still very skilled at coaching, it turned out. He had picked up a number of his father's Hakiokuseiken taijutsu techniques. With his constant use of his cane as a sword in kenjutsu, the elderly man had also shown himself to be a fairly competent sparring partner for the 8-year-old. The majority of his jutsu and attacks were water-based, and the younger boy only suffered a minor cold, which the older man quickly cured after making a cup of medicine. On the second day following Naruto's arrival at the temple, Seisame became curious about why Naruto was out here. After telling Seisame that he wanted to temporarily leave his life, the older man gave it some thought and chose to allow the younger man to stay for a few more days in order to work out the feelings that were weighing on him. On the third day following his arrival, Naruto unexpectedly noticed a framed photograph in the temple's entrance hall. It showed a ninja standing on a small island with sharks all around him, sporting a headband Naruto had never even seen in a textbook. The ninja appeared to be praying while gazing up at the cross that was visible in the sky. "Who's that?" had inquired Naruto. The elderly man grinned as he turned to face it. Looking lovingly at the framed photo, he remarked, "That's a memory of a worst time. But was it a photograph?" Naruto knew that nothing in real life could be like that, but it appeared incredibly real, more like a photograph. The ninja was much too large and wildly out of proportion to the rest of the image. "Would you like to hear about it?" Naruto gave a nod. He was a story lover. Grinning, the elderly man motioned Naruto into a different room. This one had a roaring fire in the fireplace and was tastefully furnished. Naruto settled for the cushions on the floor while Sasame settled into the big velvet chair. The old man began to tell the story slowly and gently. It wasn't always the wave as it is now. Pirates existed here on the island before civilization, before there were even many ninjas. Ruthless pirates who prowled the seven seas in search of towns to pillage and treasure to steal. However, they all settled on the island of the wave, which was their one commonality. They were haughty and intimidating. They killed anyone who dared to disobey them and used their wealth and influence to crush the spirits of the residents of the wave towns. They were heartless men, demons. And the populace wanted to be free of them. They were looking for someone who could save them and eradicate the pirate plague that was afflicting their lovely country. During that time, shinobi were still not well known and were only employed by the wealthy as assassins. Shinobi in that era were morally bankrupt, demon-like in both appearance and disposition. However, one day a ninja showed up on a beach in a boat. He was not well received by the populace. The populace believed that he had been employed by the pirates to maintain law and order on the island and prevent rebellion against their harsh and unfair masters. Therefore, it was a nasty but welcome surprise when he chopped off the local pirate boss's head as his first action. It quickly spread throughout the island. A ninja who stood up for what was right, who stood up for good. Would such a thing exist? Since it was impossible, a lot of people dismissed it as nothing more than optimistic gossip. Shinobi were only constrained by their pay and were as dependent on the coin as mercenaries. They had no motive to save lives. However, as pirate leaders died all over the island, more and more people came to believe it, and people's hopes and spirits started to rise again. Before long, only one pirate boss remained, the boss of all pirate bosses, to whom even the most regal pirates submitted. Admiral Gado was his name. After being suppressed for so long, the people's spirits were full of energy, and they marched to Gado's keep after picking up their weapons. Day after day, night after night, they besieged the pirates' castle. Just when everything appeared to be lost, a miracle occurred. From the earth, a pillar of light sprang up into the sky. The sounds of seagulls and waves crashing against the coast were audible to the people as far as they could hear from land. They recalled the cause for which they were fighting. Their home, their futures, and their lives were all at stake. They wouldn't tumble. Then he showed up. He was referred to as the Holy Shark. No one knew who he was because he wore a headband and a mask over his face. He moved forward and gave the populace orders. The people embraced him enthusiastically after it became clear that he was the shinobi who had been helping them recover their land all along. Once more, they marched on Gado's keep, and this time they were successful. They stormed into the pirate boss's sanctum through the front door. Admiral Gado was instantly killed by the Holy Shark's kunai to the throat as it walked upward. The populace exulted. The shinobi disappeared amid the festivities. Some claim that he vanished into the mountains and woods, while others claim that he returned to his birthplace and rose to become a well-known shinobi, if he wasn't already. However, the people were certain of one thing. He would always be revered as long as they ensured that the legend was perpetuated, allowing young people to grow up and hope to emulate this fantastic, illusionary man. The elderly man smiled and said, "And that's the end of that." Naruto was lying face down on the velvet cushion he had been sitting on moments before, having fallen asleep in the middle of the story. After giving the child on the bed a smile, Sasame carried him to his room so he could sleep. This boy was intriguing, very intriguing. The old man watched the young man. He had grown accustomed to tie his shoes and pack up a few items to take home to his father. "It's about time you go now, young man," he said. "Now go back to your father instantly, and tell him sorry for making him wait and worry. If there's one thing that's important in this world, it's family bonds." Naruto smiled and joyfully leapt to his feet. "No worries, Oja-san," exclaimed the vivacious young blonde. He, too, had smiled at the opportunity to spend time with the cheerful old man. He had removed the facade he put on when interacting with strangers and had returned to his true self as a contented young child. Too innocent to let anything pull them down. "You take care now." They stood in front of the temple on the porch. While Seisame was watching his young friend pack up, Naruto was still getting ready to leave when something unexpected happened. As he rushed inside and grabbed something from a shelf in the entrance hall, Naruto gave him a strange look. Naruto, a blonde fox boy, gazed at it in wonder as he handed it to him. The kunai was stunningly white. "Oh, thanks, Oji-san," the joyful little boy exclaimed. "I finally get a kunai I can use." The elderly man said kindly, Now. This kunai is very special. It's not a weapon, but a promise of protection. You don't need it, since you're strong enough yourself, but one day you'll come across a person who needs help. A person who needs help protecting those that he cares about. And when you find that person, give this to them." Naruto gave the elderly man an odd look. "Really? But what's that gonna do?" "Boy!" exclaimed the old man, "they'll get the power to defend. The power of protection is stronger than any other force alive on this earth. Except perhaps excluding love, but only give this to somebody who seems really serious about it, somebody who can't get the strength by themselves." Naruto glanced back at the elderly man after glancing at the white kunai. He smiled and said, "All right. I don't really get it, but I'll do that. Bye-bye, Oji-san." He then hurried down the stairs to the temple, smiling broadly the whole time and waving goodbye to the elderly man who had escorted him during the week he had been there. Seisame grinned and waved back enthusiastically. The old man appeared to age abruptly as the blonde fox boy disappeared from view. "Thank you for releasing me, boy. I know the wave will be safe now." With a final chuckle, the elderly man appeared to disappear into thin air. Additionally, the temple broke into tiny fragments and began floating into the sky. In a matter of seconds, the clearing had been reduced to nothing but a big boulder with a small inscription in the center. "Holy Shark. May your soul forever guide us, and may your flesh forever protect us. Otenka Seisame Protector."
That's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this great story. See you in the next one.